Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first thing is we have the minutes. Is there any additions, corrections to the minutes? Entertain a motion to approve minutes. Motion by Commissioner Materi to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Calder. Is there any more discussion on the minutes? Not hearing any. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. The approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, corrections, subtractions?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
Josh just got a text message from Lee. He was asking her to put me on as a call-in, please.
Well, I guess that I was gonna put a tax director position update on the old or unfinished business, so I don't know what time does she wanna call in.
He just texted.
I guess I would, we could almost do it right now, if you're, or right after the approval of the agenda here. If she wants to do it now. Well, we'll add that to old or unfinished business, and if she decides what time works, then we could do a call in, so I wanted to add that to the old or unfinished business. Other than that, is there any other additions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Commissioner Everly to approve the agenda as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Materi. Is there any more discussion on the agenda? Not hearing any. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda approved. Well, we'll just go to the first item here on the old or unfinished business was the fence on 90th Street Southeast, which is a section line right away. I'm gonna defer that to Joe right away.
Well, so I think some of you know, we did receive a summons and complaint on that, so there's a lawsuit that's requesting that we be ordered to, basically have that fence moved off the section line right away and find that the variance was unlawfully granted. There is also a request for attorney fees to be paid as part of that lawsuit. We had, back in November, requested opinion from the Attorney General's office on the issue, and felt like all the parties were gonna wait for that opinion, but I don't think Francis wanted to wait around for the opinion. We've been in contact with the Attorney General's office to try to expedite the issuing of the opinion, hopefully, and they did reach out to me last week and ask for some additional information. They want my opinion on it as well, so I'll provide that. We'll answer the summons and complaint, I guess, before the deadline, and we'll move on from there. I guess we'll have to have some sort. My assumption is that we'll probably have some sort of hearing on the matter, and then we'll make a determination at some point. So that's kind of what's going on with that fence issue. Is there any other questions on that? I don't know. Kind of at the initial stage of it. So.
What's the deadline date, as you stated?
21 days after the date of service.
I thought Francis told me something about March 10th.
Yeah.
So that
It'll
would
be
be,
sometime this week.
Well, I guess my only advice, just to kind of direct this meeting here, since it's a legal matter, it's being turned over to the state's attorney at this point. I don't think it's probably prudent for us to discuss it right now, just because there's really nothing to discuss. Joe is responding in the amount of time necessary, and I think that, basic stance. We were hoping to hear back from the Attorney General's opinion, and that would probably either solidify our decision or cause us to maybe go another direction, but until that comes, there's really nothing to discuss. I think that's basically the update at this point. If Joe gets any response from his response, I'm sure he'll keep us updated and go from there, so.
So you don't think we could just go by what the Century Code tells us and go that way?
Well, I think there's a variety of different options. I think without the Attorney General's opinion, we don't have any more information than we did a couple months ago, and I feel like we should just kind of stand firm with that at this point, because we went down that road. I don't see any reason to deviate from it, and Joe tends to kind of agree with that. So I think, just to give you an update, I was in contact with the Attorney General's office. They have assigned it. I don't know if that really gives it any more of a deadline, but someone is working on it. It's not just like sitting there waiting to be worked on. So that being said, we could get an answer tomorrow. It could be 6 months from now. I mean, they really didn't give us a deadline, but it is being worked on. So I would like to see that before we make any more decision as a body. Since we already made a decision, whether right, wrong, or indifferent, we've gone down the rabbit hole of going to the Attorney General. I think we should stick to that, so, until we get that decision. And then once we get that decision, then we could make a decision based off that, if we wanna stick to our guns or do something different, I don't know, so. I think that's where it's at, so. Okay.
Denise is on the phone.
Denise is on the phone?
You want to grab this?
Yeah, I suppose bring him to the microphone here.
You there? Go. Denise. Is that you?
Who's this Denise?
That's what she said.
You there? You there? Okay, we're gonna try to play a speaker right now, that one, right? That's me.
Denise, you there?
Yep.
You did?
Do you have a callback number or?
No, it's hanging like this, Josh.
Oh. Sorry about that.
She'll come back.
Okay.
Shoot.
It's a problem with a complicated phone system. It's complicated.
Well, it's just we don't have her number because we didn't.
Right, I know, but there's too many buttons here that are.
Hit the hands for the.
Hello?
Try this again?
Yes, Denise, this is Chairman Baker here on speakerphone with the county commission right now.
Sounds great. Hello. Sorry I didn't make it in person. I got to about 10 minutes from Hague and had to turn around. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was up to speed with what's happening with me. Back in January, after my separation, I did talk with Aaron. We considered a few different options as far as, you know, me not knowing what I was going to do. When I mentioned probably relocating, Aaron and I talked about the remote work, and, you know, of course, he said he couldn't speak for the entire commissioners group, but he would be in favor of me doing some remote work and getting a good transition. So as things progressed, and I decided to go towards relocating, is when, you know, I gave you guys the notice on February 7th. After that, Marcy called me, or Marcy and I had talked at one point, maybe a week afterwards, and she said, yep, she got it. Talked to HR, they've given her the form for telecommuting. agreement between the county and I. She needed to give it to Aaron and have Aaron review it. And then when I went to check back with Marcy, she was gone that day, so the following Monday, Tuesday, I checked with her and she said she hadn't heard anything back. So at that point, I texted Aaron and asked him to call me. I didn't hear anything back until Day, that's Friday the 24th, in which Aaron called me and said he wasn't comfortable with some of the verbiage that was in that agreement and needed to put more policies into place. So at this time, Emmons County wouldn't be ready to commit to me doing any remote work. You know, there was things that needed to be talked about and decided that weren't yet. And I said, well, I haven't received a phone call anywhere. At which point he said that, well, he's got other things in his life to do too, which I totally understand. But at this point, Emmons County wasn't ready to commit to that, and if I needed to take some time off to complete my move and then want to come back and work in the office, Emmons County would be more than happy with that, but at this point, remote wasn't available. I said, you called me on my last day to tell me that? And he said, well, you know, I've been busy too. And I said, yeah, but, you know, it's a little harsh to call somebody when they're planning on moving and have been talking about remote work, having to plan that way on the last day and tell me I suddenly don't have a job unless I can physically come back and work. I said that was a little spiteful to wait till that last day. And he said, well, you know, considering how much notice you gave us, I'm okay with that. I feel it was very poor handling. And that was being an uproar trying to shift on and where I was with stuff with people were having even weeks soon. The transition to be holding that over your business head. You can't do it because I know everything's just people can't be replaced. And we made it. Should be should and what it happened.
Well, I think, you know, in the fairness of things, if you wanna know exactly what happened, I mean, you did mention that you wanted to take your desktop computer to West Fargo, which that really wasn't a part of the original telecommuting process too. The second issue is that the verbiage that I was uncomfortable with was that Burley County references a lot of their teleworking policies to which Emmons County has no policies. And 17 days is not enough time to draft policies and basically reinvent an entire office. So that was my main reason for being uncomfortable. As far as your last day of work, you decided that that was your last day of work because I did tell you as long as you could do your duties in the office, in the courthouse, you still had a job here. You're the one that made it your last day and basically even referred to it as your last day because I told you if you wanted to take a couple days and move and come back and work, or do some kind of hybrid scenario with you working in the courthouse part-time, or however you wanna work, that was, you know,
You
probably.
can offer a hybrid.
No, when you talk about hybrid, the entire point of the hybrid was you probably transitioning to a different job or doing something different over the course of maybe 2 or 3 or 4 months. And you came in on February 6th, told us your last day is February 24th. And the only way for you to continue doing that job was to do it basically on your terms, not based on Emmons County's policies or anything that was even remotely in place. You basically were going to create that spot, and I wasn't comfortable with that. So, as far as spite, I know, but Denise, Denise, I'm gonna stop you, because when you say something like spiteful, that is completely uncalled for and untrue, because nobody did anything out of spite. Part of the reason I didn't get a hold of you when I did is because I was doing my own research to whether or not we even had policies that even coordinated with the teleworking agreement that Burley County sent us, and it didn't work at all for Emmons County, at all. So, I just, as far as the transition goes, you're the one that decided when your end date was, and we had to basically totally reinvent that office to coordinate with your last day of working in Emmons County. So I felt like if it was gonna be a difficult transition, no matter how we did it, I'd rather have that difficulty be with everything staying in the courthouse. So I don't really appreciate you saying that it was spiteful or anything when it had nothing to do with that. As far as the timeline of things, I didn't mean it like I was too busy to call you back. I meant it like, I'm pretty busy doing research on this situation and coordinating with you while also doing everything else that's the responsibilities of a chairman and just a business owner, father, and husband. So, you know, I apologize that it was your last day that I called you, but you decided that was your last day. You could have went, you know what, this maybe isn't the greatest thing, maybe I'll come back in a week and I can work for another month, whatever. You decided that was your last day. You weren't fired, you weren't terminated, you just weren't, you weren't given the terms you wanted to continue your employment. So that's all on you. That's got nothing to do with me or this board. You dictated all of those events. So the transition being rough had just as much, if not most, to do with you and not this board. So I appreciate you calling in and giving your 2 cents, and I'm gonna allow the commissioners to speak if they want to, but I mean, a lot of the stuff you said just doesn't really have the truth to it that it really should be. So, I mean,
And neither does your story, so.
that doesn't make any sense. So, has anybody else got anything to add to the situation?
Well, I guess I was against working remote from the get-go, so, I mean, I wasn't for that in the first place, so.
Well, and that's where, that was part of the update I was gonna add as part of the agenda. I didn't know Denise was calling in, but I was just gonna give you guys the update, is that after looking into it, talking to several other offices in the courthouse about the ability to work outside of the courthouse and what that would all pertain, a lot of the people that are going to help with this transition felt like it was gonna be difficult as well. Nobody really had a good answer for it, and I felt like the fairest, proper way to be fair to Denise and us was just to go, this wishy-washy gray area transition probably wasn't gonna work good for any of us. In the end, somebody was gonna be disappointed, it probably was gonna be bad for everybody, and it just felt like no matter how the situation went, it was gonna be difficult to replace this position. We might as well do it from a basis of staying consistent, which is the job's in the courthouse, we're keeping it in the courthouse. That was my decision, you know, and I mean, if you guys
That job
disagree,
has
that's fine.
never been only in the courthouse. Since I started, even in my interview, I've always had remote option.
I think remote options that Emmons County's participated in some remote options, as in we have a laptop, and if you were sick that day and your laptop was at home, you could conduct work from home. Especially with COVID, there was probably a looseness about that, because you lose people for 2 weeks, you know, if they can take a laptop home and conduct some of their job from home to keep things moving, we embrace that.
Yeah,
I don't think there's ever been a scenario in Emmons County that I know of where someone has basically conducted most of their work, if not all their work, remotely for more than a couple days at a time, and we don't have the policies in place to coordinate with that. We don't, you know, a county like Burley County has IT individuals that literally work on that. They have people that are, they know their protocols if equipment fails miles away from where their office is. They have people that go out, they have policies in place to who pays for what, where and why. We don't have any of that. So, in the end,
Right.
that was the decision that was
Temporary
made.
thing for a couple weeks, you know, we could have worked through that, but you gave no option for that.
Well, I don't think there were any options to give, Denise, and that's the reason I made that decision. So it wasn't out of spite, it wasn't out of anything. If you were still at the courthouse today, you would still have a job here. That's never been up for debate, so
Yeah, I knew you'd have that caveat, and that's why it was made that
it's
way.
not the caveat, that's the truth. Like I said, your last day was dictated by your decisions and not ours, so.
And of course, having to pay motel and everything, or, rent for another room, and I stayed there to work, was totally, you know, legitimate and doable.
Well, like I said,
You can pay for two housing.
your job is at the courthouse, and if you couldn't commute to that job from wherever you were moving, then it's no different than any other position in the courthouse. The people that don't live near the court, don't live right in Lytton, they commute, and they make the job,
Right.
they make the drive, so that's
Yeah.
kind of what it was at, so. Anyway,
Just that you did it justice to all the employees. You know, even if you would have called me a week beforehand and said, look, I'm having some issues with this, I don't know if it's gonna go through, you know, I would have changed training, I would have changed, my approach to getting different stuff transitioned, and not having that, even saying, hey, I'm not sure this is gonna work, really undid everything.
Yeah, well, I couldn't make that decision in a day or two, that took my own
It
research.
wasn't a decision, it was just stating that you're not sure, you're really not sure that this is gonna go.
Yeah, well, the decision.
Before my communications with you have always been, oh yeah, we're gonna get this to go.
That's not true at all. That was never the case. The only thing I ever told you is that we would probably entertain a scenario. You gave a scenario and we weren't willing to entertain it. There was no promises or anything, so. No, but Denise, this is kind of turning into a back and forth. We have an agenda to keep hold. I guess the decision is settled. Thanks for calling in.
For you to get.
There's nothing to get caught in the middle, Denise. We made,
Good day.
yeah, go ahead. All right, bye. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, I was gonna ask on that fence deal yet, are we gonna try to get that done before they pursue that some more? Before the 10th of March? That's pretty quick.
What's this?
Yeah, on that road with, Frank,
Well, Joe
We
was,
just talked about it.
yeah, Joe was responding to the letter before the deadline, and then we'll go from there. The only thing that's demanded before the deadline is a response, and Joe's giving that response.
Okay.
All right. Rob and Ken.
You want us up here?
Sure.
School, we got handouts. Sorry about that.
You have some for all of us, or we're just sharing this?
There should be one green, self-read to do, yeah,
Okay.
it should be 5.
Yeah.
So it should be pages.
Yeah, there should be an email and a description there. Yeah.
I want to come back to an old subject, which, I was involved in originally with the building of the road. They're going up to Beaver Bay where Ken lives up on top up there. The number of items there have changed since we built the road back in 2016. And for the sake of time, I tried to put things down in a little bit of an outline. I know you're tight for time. We asked Russ Lawler to give us a bid on getting the road back up to the standards that it was when it was built. Back in whatever, 2015, 2016, when we started the process of building that road, I don't know who else was on the commission at that time, but I was at the meeting, and in full disclosure, they allowed us to build the road as a private road. And that
That's steep.
there was one that goes up the hill, yeah. With the idea that, it would be our private road, the commission wasn't gonna have, or the county wasn't gonna have any, much to do with it at the time. But our points that we have laid out here, a lot of things have changed since that time. There's more and more people up on top. There's been a lot of development down below. There's, developments going into to the south of us. The road needs work. And for safety and for other reasons. So kind of just wanted to go through, if we could, again, for the sake of time, our bullet points here, kind of real quick. First of all, our taxes have gone up dramatically since back then. I don't know what the percentages are, but I forgot to pay mine. I stopped this morning and paid it, so got that taken care of. But the taxes have gone up, yeah, which has generated more revenue for the county. And really, we have no services up there, none whatsoever. There's no services, up on that hill, at all. Tax rates have gone up. There's gonna be more and more growth up there, which is gonna increase the tax base. Additional lot owners. Kind of doing through it the best we could through the county tax roll. There's been over 22,000 just in the top side, not down below or any other development. Over $22,000 a year has been collected over the last 3 years up there in taxes, which is, that's $66,000 to $75,000. I didn't get it all because I missed some of the names. I didn't have all the names for that. And then, they've increased a lot since we built the road.
There's 36 property owners up there. You know, most of them are summer only, so, but they still come up and check their places out there in the winter too, so.
How many are seasonal?
36.
Did you ask how many are seasonal or how many are?
Seasonal
How
are,
many are seasonal in the summer months only, that live out there?
there's only,
And during the winter months, how many people?
there's only 2 of us during the winter, or three, up top, 2 of us.
And that's actually a good point because a lot of those lots that have been sold up there have multiple users. And they're running, and yeah, that's fine. I have no issue with any of what they're doing with their lots, so that's not what we're saying here, but the usage of those lots, because of the usage hauling campers and other things up there has really had been detrimental to the condition of the road. And, in spring it's wet, getting rain, we have issues with that, so, that's kind of Kenny's because he's up there, he's been doing a lot of maintenance. I know that there's a lot of other people who've done a lot of maintenance as well. Gary Horner and I bought multiple, times we bought gravel to add to the road. So we're, just trying to do our best to keep it up, but with the increased usage, it's getting more and more difficult for us to do it. But just, again, this outline is not in any particular order, but one of the things that we all have now are 911 addresses. And I don't know I'm not a lawyer, I don't know the law, I don't know what the county's obligation is. If there's an emergency up there and they can't get up there because of the condition of the road in the wintertime or even in the summer or spring with mud. Because Kenny, as an example, he fell off the roof a few years ago. I don't know what he was drinking, but he fell off the roof and they had to airlift him out of there. So I don't know, again, that's not, I'm not trying to be an attorney here, say that we have a legal obligation, I don't know what the obligation is of the county for that. South of us, is again, as I said, they're developing more and more lots. John Richter has a development over there. Where that's good for the county and for Linton and the area is, more and more people are coming. It's been an economic boost, not just in your tax base, but also the number of us that come into town, buy groceries, we do other, buy hardware store, people buy a lot of things in town. So it's been good for the area. And what we're trying to get now is our road back up into some type of condition that we can, or some have a plan. I mean, that's really what we're trying to get here is can we work together with you folks to get a plan for some type of road maintenance. So the growth has been good. The bottom line is that the area is growing. Additional services will be required, by the county. There will be continued growth in the tax base that you're assessing, and the growth is also good for the local economy. We're asking that the county help us develop a plan to address the above issues and work with the property owners to continue to improve the area for betterment. So, again, the main objection in the past was that it was a private road that was built initially. And I want to go back and address that issue. I think Marlis and I were the only ones that are still, and if I'm saying something that's not right, Marlis, just yell at me, but, we were involved with it initially, and we went back and forth for a year or more before we finally got approval. And the main objection at the time was that the road had to be built to county spec, so we couldn't afford it that way. I think it was 8-foot ditches, if I remember right. There's no way to put 8-foot ditches on that hill. And if you look around, even down below, the areas that you're already maintaining as the county, most of those roads that you're going in and maintaining do not have 8-foot ditches either. So again, we're not trying to create a problem here, we're trying to look for a solution that's in the best interest of the property owners in the county itself. So I'm gonna throw that out and see where we're at in your minds.
Something else I'd like to add is, you maintain the bottom road, and you maintain it all the way back to, east goes back to the south. Well, initially, the county was only liable to maintain that road up to where, Weber's was before you turn south on that road. So, and then, as cabins were built back to the south, and then Milo Kramer come in and built that road to the south, and the county blades that and maintains it, so it's almost, I hate to use the word, it's almost like you're doing them a service down there, and they come in with the maintainer and push snow off. But you're discriminating against us going up the hill, and we're taxpayers just like the bottom people are.
Is that a section line? Is that a section line going in there?
Yeah,
So it's on,
I think when it goes to the south.
I think it's on a section.
The other reason for maintaining the lower part of the road is we own it, right, Joe? Wasn't that all was easemented out and then it went back on taxes?
Right, as far as I recollect that.
Right. Where even the road going up the hill,
We don't know
there
that.
is some easement, but it actually is right on the property line. So it's actually like, it's not like there's a specific easement, there's like a road easement. It's not deeded to the county, it's actually on each individual's property. It's kind of a different, when it was developed, it was just developed different with that, because of,
It's not on any section line.
no, it's not on a section, that's right. But that
So it's a
actual,
private right of way.
well, but that property is owned by the county because we got it on back taxes. It was no longer are they paying taxes, well then, the agreement, or at least the decision was that we probably didn't want anybody to own that road for the specific reason that if somebody came in and bought the road,
Oh,
they
yeah.
could shut it off, or because it's on a lot of private property, so the consensus was is that the county should at least just, I mean, if someone wants to buy it, they can, but the valuation of it is pretty high, no one would go and just buy the road. I mean, that's the reason why that is being maintained, because it technically is county property now,
Right.
because the property, private property came back on back
That
taxes.
was just a couple years ago, I think.
It was only, yeah, it was like 2019 or something like that when that happened, so.
Didn't Dennis Walter, didn't he deed that land as an easement, or how did he do that?
Well,
He gave the easement, I know he gave the easement for building of the road, and again, I don't know, I'm
Right.
just asking the question.
The only thing that I know, and that's the reason why I've always honored it, is part of that plat says that the county has no responsibility for the road, I believe you found, right, Josh?
For the one going.
For the one going up the hill.
Yeah, I have that.
And
Each time it got platted, they submitted it saying the county is not responsible.
right, and so whatever, I wasn't a part of those negotiations, and obviously those were great and detailed, so there was obviously a reason why the county did not want anything to do with it, or the landowners didn't want to cut, whatever was the situation. That's why I've always honored it, is because I wasn't a part of the original discussions, so to come in at the end and be like, well, that was all wrong when you weren't part of the discussions, you know, I guess.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I.
Right, and you're perfectly within your bounds to be here. I know, not only anybody's, saying you don't deserve to be here, saying what you're saying. I think my conclusion to this problem, this situation, in my mind, has always been that the reason that townships disbanded is because nobody lived in them anymore. That's an area that really should start to consider maybe reestablishing a township, or maybe some kind of homeowners association. You guys can, as a township, you would have some control over your property valuations, you would elect your own board members, and then you could disperse your money towards road maintenance as you saw fit, whether that's hiring someone. The county does contract work for Campbell Township, which is the only organized township in the county yet. We have agreed upon set of rates. They basically hire us when they need gravel hauled, and there's an agreement, there's something more binding than just individual taxpayers asking for something and whether or not they should or shouldn't, or the law agrees or disagrees. And so I feel like that's probably the proper role to go, just because your area of anything is going to grow, or at least maintain what it's at rather than shrink. Now, how many actual residents live there versus how many just stay there seasonally is maybe part of the problem with organizing as well, but I feel like you would have so much more control over things like that, and then, you get what I'm trying to say, like organizing in that fashion, but at least you guys could decide to participate in maintenance programs of your own, even your own ordinances, whether or not it's the shipping containers and the trailer houses and the campers, like we've discussed multiple times over the years. Coming from Linton, and with none of us living out there, we have a much different perspective of what we want to see out there versus what you guys do, and that's why I feel like organizing would solve a lot of those issues, and we would still be there, obviously, to help out and work. The courthouse would be at your disposal, just like it is now. You probably would actually have a better scenario with working with the county as far as getting your maintenance, because you'd be coming as more of a subdivision rather than some individual landowners, and then finding out some individual landowners don't want to have anything to do with it, and some people want to pay, some people don't, so that's I guess where my opinion always lands with it, because otherwise the agreement in place is to not have anything to do with that road, and it's kind of pretty hard to disagree with that, in the sense that,
I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying about having an organization, but getting that put together and how to go about all that is, not something that is easily done and accomplished. Because our point, what we're trying to get is that the tax revenue that's being already received by the county has gone up dramatically. And not only from a rate and a total amount, but even the revenue there's no newer, nicer places being developed down below, and all that's kind of coming together, and that has increased the revenue to the area. It's also not only from the tax base, but also what's done for the county. So all we're looking for is some type of will help us develop a solution together that you can live with and we can live with. Help us buy some time to try to put together an organization. But in the meantime, we're gonna have problems with that road, and there could be some safety issues there as well. I guess it's private, we can block everybody off, and
Well, that was a conversation we'd had with, I think it was Dennis Walter who had made the conversation that he would block the road off, but I don't think that technically you could do either, because each individual landowner kinda owns a stake in it on the way up, whatever lots are a part of that. That easement was along kind of a lot line, like the back of one lot in front of another, and then it just offset from there, so even that, you'd have to get multiple landowners to block it off probably. I know where you're coming from, Rob, I do, and I get what you mean, because it's a happening part of the county, and now that road probably was good enough for the first few places that went up there. Now that there's 20 and 30 of them, it's getting a lot of use, and I would argue that the reason the county originally probably didn't want anything to do with it is because it's an extremely difficult terrain to build a road on, and I think the foreseeable future, seeing that there was going to be problems with that.
It really has held up really well, Russ did a good job.
Well, right, but it's still a difficult road to maintain, the slope, to do it right, you would have needed that road to probably be 2 to 3 times longer, so you could maybe go around the base of the hill and gradually go up, which the land didn't allow for the Corps and everybody else, so it's kind of I've been up that road, it's a
I wish
tough trail.
people would come up and see it.
Well, it is, and it's tough to maintain, and you get a snow laying on it, and then it melts on the road, it runs downhill, I get it, and that's.
That was the other thing, if the county ever took something like that over, that the county's liable for somebody sliding off that hill or whatever else,
Well, I think that was the point is that it's an extremely difficult road to probably build and maintain, and it just, I'm guessing they probably didn't foresee the development going on up there like it did either, though. They're like, nobody's gonna build up there, the road will be terrible. Well, folks built up there, that's just how it is, and then going from the backside and around your property and going to the west is, the road you're talking about is a beautiful highway compared to the road on the backside. The road on the backside, you can almost not make with a dirt bike, it's rugged, so it's a hard place to access, and so that's where, it's a tough deal, because that road is gonna be difficult to maintain no matter who does it or how it's done, but,
But if you go back historically, and it's, the county allowed Dennis to develop the area before the infrastructure was there. And so there's some responsibility, and I guess we're gonna look at it from our side, that they have allowed this to happen before the roads are built and all the infrastructure was there. So, again, what we're asking is, even if is there anything you could do in terms of helping us collect an assessment? We're not asking you to maintain the road necessarily, we'll hire people to do it. But through an assessment so that you could help us collect the dollars, and we could do something. Is there anything thoughts there?
there may be.
We've done that originally.
There is a specials process, that being said, being it's private road and stuff, I don't know what the jurisdiction allows with, it's not county right of way, and we're assessing corrections to a county right of way, so I don't know if I'm not a lawyer, I'm just gonna assume that, so we'd have to probably have Joe look into it and see, I know there's a specials process, but that in itself is
They have to be organized for that, though?
No, you can do a special assessment district. Territory.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, give each property owner up there a special assessment that they have to pay into the county every year, and those that don't pay it, add it onto their taxes,
There might be, we probably have to do some research to find out the legalities of it, obviously, but I don't think anybody here is not willing to try and participate in improving that road, and if that's the route to go, maybe that is, so I guess all I would tell you is we'd probably look into it and find out if it's possible.
Did you guys ever try to organize anything out there?
We tried, a lot of the guys, people don't want it, they don't want to feature their way up there.
Why is that,
Cause they figure they don't spend enough time up there, and, now with the river low, they're gonna be up there less time because.
Sure.
There's always an excuse.
Right.
So asking for the 19,600 to do the road's not gonna happen? I'm just kidding.
You're kinda kidding, but you're not, you're kinda,
You don't ask for the sky, you ask for the.
well, if you want a cat, ask for a pony, right? Yeah, no. I would say, I guess my own opinion here, I think the county would probably maintain the stance it has, just because that's what's been consistent. That being said, I think we could look into possibly, working together on something, we can have Joe check into a scenario like that, where if you wanna hire a contractor and use the county to facilitate some financing, that could be an option, I don't know, I can't say that without probably getting myself into trouble, so. All I can tell you is we'd probably consider it and check into it, if that's fair enough.
So, should we check back to see if it's legal and?
Right, I would say Joe's got a
Talk to Joe.
pretty big plate full right now, maybe give him a month or so at least, until they can check into it, or we can
So
ask
that's,
somebody who's maybe a little more of an expert to check
Yeah, you
it
can get a hold of one of us when he comes up with an answer, and then we can set a.
out. Right, or something like that, right, I think that would be
so
fair.
that amount you had here, that was for Russ could fix it back up again?
Yeah,
And the way it was, or better than it was, or?
at least, what I asked you to do is give us your highest possible quote to get it back to the standards of when you built it. And so there would be, my guess is we could probably cut that down quite a bit and get the road safer and more usable, if he'd be willing to do it for a less amount.
That's a tough grade to hold it fast.
It is, but it really has held up. I mean, and a lot of, Kenny probably most of the work, but a lot of people have done the work. There's some other guy been doing some work up there. It's held up pretty well.
Is it tough during the winter with snow and everything?
Well, first going up, yeah, the last couple.
Going down's
snowfall-
easy, right?
snowfall we
Going up
had,
is tough.
I've had to blow 2 to 3 feet of snow from where you turn up from the bottom road, the first 300 yards before you get, halfway up the hill. It lays in there, especially if it comes out of the southeast or northeast,
Well, guys, I'd say for the sake of time, so we can keep moving, we'll keep moving, but I'd say, yeah, we'll kind of,
We'd appreciate the help and if we
Yeah.
can somehow work together.
we'll look into it and kind of see where the limits are as far as,
I kind of think that sensible deal would probably be the best route. Better that.
I think we can explore that and at least find out if there's any opportunity to help out, or I think if there's a way, we can try and work with you guys. Alright.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you all for getting to see me again.
We sure appreciate it, Ken, thanks for coming. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, thank you.
Tina? We do have a public hearing at 10, so if it needs to take longer, we probably just have you go on the other side of the hearing then, we'll give you all the time you want, but we might have to.
Cause you guys discussed with you. I brought Dennis along with me because he knows, the history of the road and also directions better than I do, so. But anyway, I know you guys discussed this before, Skylar brought it to your attention for us. And, we just wanted to basically give a little history of this property because we watched it online and, actually that land out there belonged to my grandma. I mean, all the land. And then my dad bought it and, my dad bought it.
Oh, you bought 56 acres.
Yeah. And, developed it into, Beaver Bay subdivision. Okay, he put that, lot 25A into, a life estate for me and my sister. And, when he died last year, it became our property. So, and then that's when we realized, that the road runs through about 1/3 of our property. And, I don't know, we have pictures of it, I gave them to Josh, that you can kind of see.
Did you hand out this survey?
No, I
We had it in our package.
Okay, I'll pull it up.
John's the only one that he didn't get his packet, so.
We basically wanted to get it on record that you will move the road eventually. I mean, we're in no hurry. My sister and I mean, we're not really interested in selling it at this point. But,
The old road used to go through the trees. It used to be just a dirt track. When he developed that back there, that was, the only people that were back there was with my daughter and my nephew. And we tried to get the county to gravel it at least because it was so dusty. But we actually, everybody went together and paid for some gravel, and you went through them trees, we trimmed them down, you could drive through them.
Yeah, I think you can see on there that where the road might have been, it's right next to that fence.
Kind of an old two-track trail.
Yes, that's all it was, just a trail. I know when my daughter and son-in-law moved their trailer back there, we had to get to the correlate to go through there, because you couldn't because of them trees. But they were not as not as thick as that. That was, back in the earlier days. They have a cabin there back, or not there, but up on top of that, before you get to that trail.
So to make that work, you'd have to take those trees back out to make a road.
Well, I'm sure that's the reason they actually just went across that property, because of the trees. They didn't want to cut them down. We don't have a problem, I mean, I know you'd have to remove them trees inside, but if you would just widen that back where it would be, wanting where it should be, I mean, we're not asking you to take any of that gravel out or whatever, we just
if we'd ever decide to sell it, that,
we're gonna use it ourselves, it's
Yeah.
kind of
Right.
a pain. Like I said, we used to have a cabin back, and we sold it in '09, so this was all happening because we never had my daughter, and we never went back there no more. And actually, we didn't pay attention to this until we inherited the property.
Well, I think a fair description of the Beaver Bay road system would be path of least resistance, I suppose. So, I mean, it seems like if there were some trees in the way, they just went around, and the neighbors didn't care, and then now you're going.
Well, that was a vacant lot for years.
Right, so, yeah, put the road there, it's fine, and nobody had a problem with it until the land pit changes, then it's like, well, this is kind of a problem. And I understand where you're coming from, because it's like, now this lot, you basically devalue that lot by having the road run through it when it shouldn't be running through it, so it kind of,
So does it bother you now, or is just something down the road when you want to sell it that you want to make sure that it's right?
Well, it's nothing that it would have to be done now. I mean, I would like to get it on the record that it would be,
like
taken
you're not disappointed, but you're not exactly happy the road's on your lot, right? I mean, that's what,
Yeah.
I mean, I understand where you're coming from, this lot shouldn't have a
It needs
road
to
on
be
it.
corrected
Right.
eventually.
You're right, and I think it's good that you are on the record of doing that, because no matter when this happens, the first discussion is, well, I wonder what was said, or what was the original
Well,
decision,
that's
well, at
what-
least you're here,
Yeah.
so.
But maybe 10 years down the road, you might not.
Yeah.
Well, right,
Bunch
none
here.
of us could be here, right, then you're going, what happened 10 years ago, why didn't anybody say anything?
Well,
And
then
it's
they'll
like,
say,
well, they
say, well, that's grandfathered in, that's why it's.
Yeah.
Well,
That's what we thought too.
It would be grandfathered in, and I'm sure that road went there, and Teen's dad didn't even know it, because at his age, he wasn't going back there anymore. All his friends were gone, he didn't have no reason to go back there.
I have a question, so instead of moving the road, what if the county bought that property?
I
I
don't
don't
know.
think you give us what we want for it, so,
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
yeah, to be honest. Like I said, we ain't asking you to build a road, because it's not really a road now, all you have to do is widen it. And eventually, whatever, that gravel would overgrow or whatever.
let nature reclaim the part of the road
I
up
mean,
to
we're
the
not
property
trying
line.
to expect you to do anything besides that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I suppose what you have to do is cut the trees out, and then they
Yep.
just blade it over, blade some of the gravel over.
Well, you'd probably have to.
Yeah, you can take the gravel that's there and push
Yeah.
it over if you wanted to.
Yeah.
You'd have to
I mean,
establish.
actually, the easement, the stakes are out there, I don't know if any of you have driven out there. They're all staked, and then they're right up to that, fence that, well, I'm not sure who the guy owns it now, it used to be
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Beastrom's lot.
It used to be
But-
Dave Beastrom's, but.
But it's right up against his fence line there, that, he's got that wooden fence.
Well, I think when Dave actually put his fence up, I even talked to him a little bit, I said, I think you're,
So is there a lot of trees there that have to be removed?
oh, if it would've been done right away, it'd been a lot less.
There's a picture there of the trees.
That's kind of the story of trees too, if you let them go too long, then they become a problem, so
See, those are the
yeah.
trees
Yeah,
right
them are
there.
the trees right there.
Well, I think at some point you probably just have to reestablish that easement and know exactly where you're at and try and make.
I mean, they got all the stakes there already, I don't know.
I doubt them stakes will be there come spring.
Well, I don't know.
Well, they'll be there.
They're there, we put steel ones in.
Oh, we put steel in, okay, well, maybe they will be there.
I would say maybe they, if they get time in the summertime, they go.
Well, we'll just have
cut
to
the
look
tree
at it
down.
and assess it, I mean, that's something, maybe if something transpires from the other Beaver Bay Road, maybe you can, rather than using our crew, maybe you work something out with another contractor, I mean, there's a lot of variety, I mean, you could maybe make a scenario where you could get somebody to actually easier or faster than we get to it, cause they're already working on another road, so that, I think there's a variety of ways we could probably look into it and try and handle it.
I was gonna say, like in the wintertime, if they got time, they could cut down the trees and,
Well,
stuff like that,
which winter time? Cause like
Well,
today,
this
I
winter,
would say there's no
yeah.
time for cutting trees, so.
Yeah.
Then you can just pile up the wood and people would disappear.
Just throw the logs in the river, right? Nobody cares.
No, people use them to burn.
No, I know. Well, I'd say you have a valid, protest, complaint, whatever you want to, I think what you guys are bringing up is right, and at some point we should take a look at it and see if we can try and correct it. I can't make a promise exactly when that will be or how it will get corrected, but I would say we'll keep looking into it, trying to make that right, I guess, and if that's,
Well, like I said,
if that's within our rights and bonding, we have to, I know, I'm pretty confident in my knowledge that I think we own all that, cause that was a part of that property that
No,
came back
no, it
on
wasn't
taxes,
easement.
right? That entire road was like a road easement. I don't even think anybody's property correlates with it, cause the property lines ended at the easement, so I think that's all part of the property that the county got back, so. I don't know.
Skylar, you know where that's at, right, down there?
Yep.
I don't think that would take a whole lot,
Well, it depends exactly what you want for a finished project. From his chair, it looks pretty easy, right? Yeah. Well, I would say it's something we'll look into, and if we can find some kind of a resolution, whatever that might be, we'll have to check in our obligations and rights too, and make sure we're not trampling on anybody else's rights or something, make sure if we do something, it's done right, so.
Okay, thank
Fair
you.
enough. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. That's right. Well, he's south, he's got a pretty decent size. Yeah, and he's got a garage next to it. And it's kind of on the end of that.
Erin, that's Rose Headache, she wants to participate by phone, you should just
Sure.
listen.
Uh-huh,
I don't know. Last time I hung up and move on to this one.
well, he should be, Rose, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna attempt to hang up the phone, but I don't think it's gonna hang up on us.
Okay,
Okay, you still there?
I am still here.
Huh, I figured out how to run the phone.
Hey, you're having a good day.
Yeah, okay, well, it's close enough to 10 o'clock, we'll call this public hearing to order. The purpose of the public hearing is a petition to discontinue, close, and vacate Washington Avenue in Tenvick from 72nd Street Southeast to Taft Street. There's also a second petition to discontinue, close, and vacate alleyway in Tenvick from Washington Avenue, Block 9 on the east side to the Tenvick Road, Block 9 on the west side. I guess to begin the public hearing, I would probably call Mike, just to come up and kind of give a brief update, because you are basically the petitioner, or one of the petitioners. And you can kind of just give a brief overview like you did the last meeting as to
Well, yeah.
what it is
Well,
and why you're doing
You said it, you can see the map. We want to close Washington, which runs from the county road all the way through the development. And towards the county road, that where Gerard has it, it's impassable right now. It's just full of junk and stuff and pipe, and Gerard likes to collect stuff, so anyway. So it's impassable right now. and, nobody uses it. And then the alleyway is on, yeah, right there. I own both sides of it there. And then, Leroy owns that, those two, and Bertels own the corner, and then, oh, what's his name? Oh, God, Will owns the other lots. And that isn't really there either, you know, it's there on paper, but it's not really there. And I'd like to get rid of that, just because legally someone can drive down through there if they want to, you know, not that they ever would, but just, anyway, and so that's the overview. There was, scuttlebutt questions, whatever, going around about ambulance and fire protection being affected by these road closures, and they would not be in any way. There's still the main road going up, which is, yeah, that one. That's the main road coming in, and Bertels and everybody pretty much uses that road to come in. Or the one on the top there, that county road, yeah. Those are the two roads that access it. The bottom one, like down where you first were, that goes all the way to Mr. and Mrs. Bertels. And they use that to come in and out. And ambulances would use that route to get in and out, and with fire trucks.
So is there any 911 addresses on that at all, going in there?
Not for Washington.
I asked if there was any 911 addresses going in on any of those streets, that Washington Street there and stuff.
No, I double checked, there's no. No Washington address.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I don't think so. My address is the other road, and that would be Joey's too, I'm sure.
Yep.
And Gerard's would be that county road at the top there. No, not, probably the other one, I guess. That one there. And then, so I would say no, there's not. So, I guess that's the overview of it. But like I say, you know, the fire trucks and the ambulances still have the same access to everybody as they would without those roads. Right now, the road where your arrow's at, okay, it hasn't been plowed once this year. I mean, snow, you know. So there's, you know, anywhere from 3 to 5 feet of snow in there, depending on which way the wind blows. So it's inaccessible right now anyway. And that's about all I have. And, you know, any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Josh, on that road on the west side, east of those grain bins, kind of the main access into Tendick,
Yep.
is there actually any easement there, or is that private property?
Look, log, see if it's an easement or not.
Because it doesn't look to me
It was
like,
platted, here was platted road, obviously, because their property lines don't go up to there.
right,
So here was platted,
but up north
but then
there,
once they hit Nagels, I'll have to look at that.
it kind of looks like there's actually no, I mean, it doesn't look like there's actually easement or right of way there, it almost looks like it's just a road built on.
And there might be easement that's recorded and I don't draw.
That's just not on the
every
map,
easement
right?
Because there's so many types.
Well, thank you, Mike. I guess at this point, is there anybody else here that wants to speak in favor of this petition? Is there anybody else here that wants to speak in favor of this petition? Is there anybody here that wants to speak in opposition to the petition?
I do.
Okay, Rose. Go ahead and, state your name and, I guess the reason for your calling.
Okay, I'm Rose Heddick, and good morning to everyone. I think this is totally senseless. It's not necessary. Why can't we leave Tendick alone? And it's been this way for years, and it's been fine, so I think it should be left alone.
Rose, do you own property in Tenvick, or do you have any relation in Tenvick or anything, or?
Yes,
Okay.
Leroy Rooker is my brother.
Okay, I see.
And my folks bought that, those lots already in 1970. So
Okay.
I've been around Tendick a lot.
Sure.
In fact, my dad worked at the elevator when he retired off the farm and lived there, so, yes.
Okay.
We're quite familiar with Tendick.
Sure. Rose, a personal question, is Kathy Skachenko your relation at all?
She's my sister.
Okay, because we do have a letter from you and Kathy here too, so that's where we're just kind of
Yes,
connecting the
yes.
dots there a little bit, so, okay. Does any of the other commissioners have any questions for Rose? Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Well, if nothing else, maybe we can table this until there's no snow up there so people can actually see what we're talking about.
I received a letter, which you probably all did, from Rose.
Yep.
Okay, that should probably put on record.
Sure, yeah, I mean, I think that would go part with, probably with the petition and everything else altogether, you know, Okay. Is there anybody else that wants to speak in opposition to the petition?
I did have a phone call this morning from a resident up there. He opposes, the close up the road.
Mm-hmm.
So he just said he uses it once in a while and he just opposes it, he doesn't want it closed, so.
Is there anybody else that wants to speak for or against the petition?
Mr. Daly?
I'd like to see it left as is, but if the part where Gerard's junk is, that has been used for years, that I have no problem.
Mm-hmm.
But it goes off when half the town. All that.
Okay. Is there anybody else that wants to speak for or against the petition, since there's not a very big crowd? Okay. Well, I think we will consider this part of the public hearing closed. Commissioners? For, against, ideas, modifications?
Well, how does that work if we got some opposed and some against?
Well,
Yeah.
that decision is really up to us in a sense, the process was followed.
It's easier when everybody opposes, you know.
Yeah, I know.
It's easier when there's one side or another,
I didn't
yeah.
know if there was some kind of guidelines the guys gotta go by.
Well, I guess the guidelines is the public hearing, those have spoke for and against it, and whether or not it's a good idea by this board and to close. I mean, I don't know what end, you know, if you have to follow the petition exactly, can you modify it? That part, I guess I don't know. But assume you'd
Yeah,
almost either have to approve or deny the petition, not modify their petition demands.
I think you could deny the petition and provide a reason and maybe hint at, if you were more
Maybe
willing
an
to-
acceptable middle
Right,
ground or
and
something.
You could always file a different petition that kind of falls in line with that, but yeah, you have to just continue the petition, or consider the petition as it is been presented, because otherwise the landowners up there wouldn't necessarily have notice of the exact terms.
You could make a decision that nobody agrees on, right? And that would make it even worse. So yes, I'd say you probably either have to vote for, in favor, or against the petition as it's stated, so.
Can I say something or not?
Sure.
The phone call you had, did that lady own land in their property?
Yeah, I mean, I had a couple phone calls, they were all landowners, so. But,
Well, I think Leroy's the one that owns that property, and he signed that petition, both of them.
sure,
But, and then when I, you know, I mean, I just got landowner signatures on that thing, I didn't, you know, go door to door, try to, you know. And the vast majority of the landowners signed the Washington one, all of them except for one landowner. And on the alley one, everybody that owns adjacent to that alley that it would directly affect, everybody signed it except for one, Burtzels. So, like I
You
say,
need to be corrected on that.
okay, well, I think we'll probably.
Because there is one more, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but there is one more landowner there that wasn't approached about the petition.
Okay, well, I think, at this point, the public hearing's over. I did extend you the courtesy might to ask a question, but I think we're done with the public hearing now, so otherwise we'll have a situation arise where we won't have a resolution.
Okay.
I guess the main decision here would be if the commissioners are in favor or against, or the other thing is to table it if you feel like there's more information to be had. Those are the options, I guess, and, I mean, you're allowed to discuss it if you want right now, or if not, allowed to make a motion to approve, table, or deny. I'm in favor of any one of those scenarios. I guess my opinion is I just don't know if I see the reason to change it. I mean, I can understand some of the value of vacating some of the stuff, but I think definitely in the most recent future, messing with right-of-ways and things, either whether it's at Beaver Bay or out in the country somewhere, it seems like leaving it alone and establishing what's already done is probably the best course, because if you go through and you start vacating things and then you find out that someone wasn't involved or we missed something, now all of a sudden you're in a worse situation than if you'd have just left it alone. So I guess that's my opinion on it. I see the value of it. I don't think it's just a senseless process. I can understand why it wants to be done, but at the same time, I just feel like it's probably just not in the best interest of either Emmons County or even though some of the individuals there probably want to see it done. We don't know what's gonna happen in 10 to 20 years. I mean, odds are it's gonna stay the same or get smaller, but you don't know that. Any variety of project could come through or something in the meantime, and all of a sudden it becomes a town that's worth reestablishing, and now we went and closed alleyways and closed streets, and it just seems like leaving well enough alone is probably the best process. So that's my opinion, since.
Yeah, I feel, being there's people that oppose of it, I guess I feel that we should make it right now, close it, and leave it the way it is and be done. If nobody would oppose it, it would be one thing, but when people are opposed things, then it's hard to really close everything off.
Yeah, that's kinda how I feel too. I mean, leave well enough alone if some people oppose it and some are for it, and
Yeah.
just keep it the way it is.
And that doesn't mean that there's, like, I can understand, you get to the northern part of Washington there, most of that's not even accessible. If it's maybe a little more portion of that, or some of these other parts where some of these other people that are opposing it are excluded from that part, you keep the alleyway half open and close off parts that you only want, maybe that's a different scenario where you're leaving access to those that want it, and then the ones that don't, you can close off parts of those. That is entirely possible maybe in another petition or another scenario, but I think as it's written, I think it's probably just too much change, and with the opposition there is, it seems like no matter what, it's probably gonna end in some people being upset, so you might as well just stick to the rules and the way it is, I guess. So that's my opinion, but.
So does that mean that Jordan would have to open his section of the road again?
Well, technically, if you wanted to say it that way, he probably is encroaching on the easement. That being said, I don't know if there's really if someone wants to make a deal out of it, I suppose they could.
Somebody could.
Well, you could,
Right.
but that being said, there's plenty of access around it too, so that's why I can see the value of closing off part of it. If that landowner and the adjacent landowners want to close off part of it or sections of it, and they can all agree on it, and there's no opposition to it, then I don't probably see a problem with that.
all the adjacent landowners have already agreed to close it.
Right, but to the entire Washington, not to just part of it, that's
All
the
the
problem.
adjacent landowners on Washington have agreed to close Washington.
Right, but at the same time,
Burtzell's down, that other street's a different street.
right, but they still utilize Washington, right? I mean, well, that's not what I was told, so
No, they don't.
that's where,
You know,
like I say, right now, Washington's got 4 feet of snow in it. It has never been plowed once this year.
Right, but you're not
There's a
just,
lot of that this
well,
year.
you're not just talking about closing it in the winter too, you're talking about closing it in the summer, and that's
Yeah.
where some of that access is probably what those folks want, is maybe just the summer access, and that's where it's tough to vacate things like that when there's enough opposition. I mean, even like that piece right there, I mean, really, that's being encroached upon, that should either get cleaned up or vacated. Now, if that piece wants to get vacated and it comes back as a petition and nobody opposes it, I don't see a reason to clean it up, you know, and in that case, I could even agree with, even if there was a small amount of opposition, because it's probably unnecessary to use it, since it hasn't been used in probably 30 years from the looks of the trees, so I think there's parts of it that are understandable, but the entire piece is probably just too much, at least for anybody that wants to utilize some of that property, so. I guess for this case, for the sake of time, I guess I'll entertain a motion to either approve, table, or deny.
I'll make a motion to deny this particular petition for now.
One particular petition, or
Well, no,
there's
I
two
mean,
of them, so.
Both, yeah,
Okay, so
for now, deny both.
Commissioner Holm makes the motion to deny both petitions to discontinue, close, or vacate Washington Avenue from 72nd Street to Taft Street, and from Washington Avenue Block 9 to 10th Road Block 9. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Culver. Is there any more discussion? Take a roll call vote on this. Madam Auditor, will you call the roll?
Emily,
Yes.
Holm,
Yes,
Jerry,
Yes.
Magrum.
Yes. You gonna call Commissioner?
Culver.
Yes.
Okay, the petitions are denied. That'll conclude the public hearing on the subject, and we will move on the agenda.
Thank you for your time,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rose.
Thanks, Rose.
Thank you.
Skylar.
Do we want to move up the Spellman drives and the Society of Professional Land Surveys and the right-of-way permit due to the weather, the roads are getting bad?
We could, are they here?
Are you guys with? We're with the Seismic. Oh, the Seismic company? Okay, we can do their permit quick then. I guess.
Okay, we can move you guys up, then that way we can stay.
They can get on the road.
Skylar's road superintendent, he's gotta stay here when the weather's bad.
So here's the permit.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody can reach it from there.
These ones I do not sign off. They're here to answer any questions you guys may have about what's going on. So.
And I'm Steve Cook, so I'm Midwest Ag's representative for this seismic project. I can answer your questions specifically to that project, and as I told them, kind of generally about carbon capture, and then Art Luna is the permitting, so the question is directly about the 50 hour.
That's just a copy of the permit.
we all got
Right, we got that in the packet. so. Okay. And you're Art Luna, right?
I'm the one for the permit, the right-of-way permit for Paragon Geophysical Services.
Sure.
They got a stretch about, on 56th Street, about 6 miles. 1 mile is, privately owned. So I'm talking to the landowner to give us permission on that. He basically said yes already, just signing the paperwork and send it back home. But it's between 16th Avenue and 22nd Avenue Southeast. That's the 6 mile stretch that we're trying to.
Summarize, basically, they're straight north between Kintyre and Brad. I mean, they're north of Kintyre about 3 miles, 2.5 miles.
North of Kintyre.
And they're going east-west, basically almost between Braddock and Kintyre. On 56, right, you said?
Yes, 56. And the west end is on, right off of 16th Avenue. And it goes all the way to the 22nd Avenue.
This is for.
You wanna just give a light description of what your seismic survey actually is, or how you're conducting it?
Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so basically, we have these recording devices, they're about 6 inches by 6 inches. They'll be placed along the edge of the road every 82 feet, so we'll have about 380 of them down the edge of the road. And then we have 2 vibrator trucks that will stop in line at each box and they'll put vibration in the ground, sound energy into the ground that we can record in those boxes. Long and short, I think if the weather cooperates with us, which is doubtful, but we can probably lay that out, shake it, pick everything up, be gone hopefully in 2 days. Otherwise, we would be stressed out.
So this study is for what though?
It's imaging, and what they're looking for is the right kind of geology for our carbon capture project down the road. So this is really just the first phase of a feasibility study. If they find what they would like, that would be followed up by a survey they'd seek in order from it, and then potentially a well and carbon sequestration after that.
So this is, just to be clear, this is completely separate from the Summit project.
Completely separate.
Okay, just,
Yeah,
that's
we-
what for
kind of
folks that are watching the
into
meetings,
those
and it's, right, it's,
You guys are looking for information instead of all.
Exactly, yeah.
so you'd be looking, actually, there would be a well in Emmons County, potentially, that's what you're looking for, is
If
the,
they find.
the right scenario to possibly put a well and actually sequester it in Emmons County.
Yeah.
Okay. And with your seismic survey, is there really gonna be any surface damage or anything like with your vibration?
No, and that's, you can come to me directly, because that's one of the things that I'm here to make sure that there isn't. So our process is we'll have a surveyor go down the lines and they'll do the one call, make sure that there's no hazards, anything that has any possibility of being damaged by our vibrator. The state puts a standard 300-foot buffer on a lot of different structures. We have to get a variance to get any closer than that, so no issues.
What's the reason for it if they're trying to push a 24-inch pipeline, Summit, through this state, through this county?
To be honest,
Why is there somebody else looking for another bathroom?
to be honest with you, I have no familiarity with this Summit project at all.
So this project that you're doing here, this would come from Spiritwood to where?
From Spiritwood to wherever they find the right geology. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't listen about Summit really.
Sure, well, that's why I asked the question, is just because folks are probably gonna watch this meeting and then wonder if it's part of any, which this is a completely separate, another.
So when they pump that in the ground, can that contaminate groundwater?
So I'm only a layman, but what they're looking for is federal regulations, we have to be below 2,600 feet. So they're looking for 3,000 to 4,000 feet depth. At that point, the CO2 is liquid, and what they look for is the right kind of pore space they talk about. So sand deposits at that depth, and then they look for shale above it that is unfractured and will contain it. And then the process, as it goes forward, once the well's in, we just came from Underwood where we did a baseline survey. They haven't started putting CO2 in the ground yet, and then we'll return in 6 to 9 months, and then I think maybe every couple years after that. And they'll use the seismic to track the plume as it spreads out at those depths. And so, long and short, there should be no issue with groundwater because we're so much deeper, and they try to pick the correct location and keep track of it.
Well, there's a lot of artesian wells around here that are that deep.
Yeah, that's possible then.
It's possible.
Is your vibrations, is there a specific area or distance that you want to be away from like a residence or something? Does that have any effect on the surface or?
Yeah, we stay 300 feet away from buildings, concrete foundations, that sort of thing.
Which doesn't look like that's probably gonna be much of a problem on this road,
Yeah,
it's pretty
that's
isolated, so.
Part of why we're out there, and water lines have been a problem for us in the past, and the sites were chosen because of the absence of water lines.
Right, I mean, just to give you a perspective here, it would basically be between Vernon, Judy Carlson's and Anthony Moss. So that's the road, they're basically, it's between 22nd Avenue and 17th or 16th, which is basically starts northeast of Braddock about 3 miles and ends about 2.5, 3 miles north of Kintyre. So almost, if you took Braddock and Kintyre, went up 3 miles, that's about where that area. And you're only gonna be on the right of way of the road.
Yeah.
And then you have permission from all the landowners if you need to access any of their property, or you don't plan on it, or?
There's gonna be one landowner on this line. I thought I could put a map on, or in that pen. You see the lines in blue, they're towards the west side?
It should be in your packet with that map right there.
That's the only private owned property we're gonna be on. I don't know if y'all know James Silverman?
Yep.
He's the one that owns that property.
What's the name?
James Silverman. No, James, so yeah, so you're on the west, but we'll see where 17th ends, that's the end of the gravel road, so I'm assuming that stretch of mile is where you need to be on basically. It's right away, but there's probably not much of a road there, Ben.
Right,
Pretty much.
and I talked to him yesterday, he didn't have a problem with it,
Okay.
so I sent him a permit so he could sign it. But, on the other stuff, we're just gonna be using the right of way for the county.
If there is problems, is there recourse to you guys on wells or somebody files a complaint?
Yeah, certainly, you would talk to us and, to be honest with you, we're very careful, our offset distance are really conservative. So on this last project, we were just in Underwood, and we had PPD monitoring as we went along, because they had a 36-inch water line, 8-inch water line, some other structures that they wanted monitored. So we monitored that pretty closely. The closest we came to anything was 100 feet. The data suggests that we could probably be within 20, 30 feet, 80 feet. So we can track that if that's something that's necessary. It's an extra expense, and there's so little out there. It's easier for us to just keep an extra distance, but it's something that can be done if you need it.
The vibration's not really aggressive or anything, even when they put the pad down, it's real slow going to the ground. And then they vibrate a frequency you can, unless you're standing right next to it, you can feel it, but most of the other times you can hear the humming, and that's about it.
Basically what they use in the western part of the state.
Yeah,
On oil production.
It's been silent to that, so.
So when they pump this in the ground, is this something they want to take it back out and reuse again at some time, or what?
I don't think they look that far ahead. The idea is to pump it and store it. And kind of to go back to the groundwater question, though, like CO2 is what's in your soda water and that sort of thing too, right? So.
In the minimum amount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had some experience with the CO2 sequestration recently, so that's why you're getting the questions you get.
Yeah. I got it, yeah.
I mean, just to be fair, I mean, you guys have been more than cordial, I mean, but, I guess I'm just gonna speak on something, right-of-way permit is a very informal process, it's usually hardly even comes with any questions. I guess my reason for questioning it, and is just because of my recent education on this process, the one thing that worries me is that it's just a right-of-way permit, and you just come in and do seismic because you're looking for something. It doesn't mean there's gonna be a project, it doesn't mean there's even a project in the works, it just means you guys are on step A, B, and C of all the way to step Z possibly.
Yeah.
And to be fair, there really isn't much of a reason to turn that down. The only thing that scares me is, as we've seen recently with the legislature, and we've seen also with the carbon capture policies and lobbying that's been done, is as far as eminent domain and as far as amalgamation and this process of you only need a few participants and you can take from the others, we've found that it's very difficult to basically control these projects. The only way to probably control a project like this is to not even let them look for it. I mean, I'm just speaking honestly, because if you let them do a seismic survey and they find something, now it becomes a project, and now they have all these options available to them. amalgamation and eminent domain. And now you have a process where you have a project where some participate, some don't want to. We have the same fight we almost had with the pipeline, and it may seem unfair to lump that all in, but I haven't seen anything from the state legislature that's willing to really protect any of the individual counties and townships from some of these big projects coming in. And I guess I did receive a couple phone calls from people curious about the project and curious what they're looking for and if we're even going to allow it, which my first comment was, well, it's a right-of-way permit, it's not that big a deal, nothing's really happening. But after thinking about it, I'm not for CO2 sequestration, definitely not in Emmons County, and I guess I don't even want them looking for it. So I guess that's my opinion on it. If I'm off base or wrong, you can sure tell me. I guess if that's the case, I'm not really even in favor of the seismic survey.
I'm gonna voice my opinion, I feel the same way as Aaron. I'm not a friend of the CO2 sequester, not a one bit. And I know if you give everybody a step, just to put a footprint, they will continue to march and walk the direction they wanna go.
Well, we just don't know enough about it yet either, you know?
Right,
And the federal government has nothing in place. And these companies are rushing ahead to get in on this play, this game. And it's all a money game. And why don't they just sit back and let the feds get everything in place, and maybe to your benefit down the road, but let's all just sit tight and let's wait and see what happens, and get rules and policies in place, and then move forward. I'm not a friend of letting them in, even to do seismic.
Well, and I think the conversation we've always had before is even like now we're dealing with the pipeline scenario, and it's like, well, at least they're not pumping it into the ground here. Well, now if they're looking to pump it in the ground here too, it's a whole nother deal, and I don't think anybody's really in favor of that. A pipeline versus even sequestering it here is two other things too, and I normally would not be in favor of just shutting down a right-of-way permit. Allowing people to do their job on this really doesn't bug me, but the problem is once they find something and they get a few people signed up, now all of a sudden they're allowed all these rules, and if you go to the state for recourse, the lobbyists destroy it and we have nothing. So honestly, the only recourse we have is to deny this permit, not even let them look for it. Maybe I'm wrong, you guys can sure correct me on it, but that's almost the route they've allowed us, because there's no other. As soon as an eminent domain or amalgamation process takes place, we have no authority or power, we lose, so.
Just like somebody made a remark to me last night, the best thing this county could do, granted they say there's 400 grand to be had, supposedly, on their projections from Summit, that's no guarantee. And for 10 years, they're tax exempt, and it's gotta come from us people paying the taxes into the state, where we get paid back from our taxation back to the counties. And then finally, 10 years later, they start paying supposedly taxation.
Well, let's clarify, this has
Yeah.
nothing to do with Summit specifically, so I don't wanna go into that road, and so
I'm not a friend of this.
Just to be fair, I guess, in my opinion, I guess I'd rather just have them not even looking for something that we hopefully don't even want them to find, so I guess with that, if anybody else has anything to say. Not to entertain a motion to approve, table, or deny the right-of-way permit for Paragon Geophysical.
I make a motion to table it and deny it.
To deny it?
To deny it. To deny their seismic permit.
Okay, so Commissioner Materi makes a motion to deny the right-of-way permit for Paragon Geophysical to do their seismic survey. Is there a second to that motion? Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Holm. Is there any more discussion? Is there any more discussion? Is there any more discussion? Not hearing any, I think we should go to a roll call vote.
Everly,
Yes.
Walem,
Yeah.
Culver,
No.
Magrum,
Yes,
Materi,
Yes.
permit is denied. Is there anything you guys would like to add, or?
Well, yeah, I guess the question I would have would be, what's our recourse going forward?
Well, I guess you could, you could probably reapply for the permit and see if you get all the landowners on board and wanna come in here and have you go through with it or something, but I think there's a pretty firm stance, at least by most of the members of this board, that
Sure.
we just, at least in the current environment, in the current situation, just CO2 sequestration in Emmons County is just not a very hot topic. I don't think anything anybody even really wants to, you know, and it's nothing against you guys. I think you guys have done a fine job, right? It's, and to make it personal or bleed it into other projects is not the case. I just think we've had enough public hearings and enough input in the recent future to just know that the appetite for CO2 sequestration is low in Emmons County. And I think any kind of project relating to it at this point definitely needs to either be tabled or denied. I think speeding through and allowing a permit, doing all these things and having unintended consequences later, we're probably on the best side of being more cautious. You know, that being said, if you wanted to do some public outreach, maybe meet and greets, things like that. One thing we kind of criticized other companies and things for in the past was not having enough information out there to educate people, so you tend to rely on your own information wherever you get that, whether it's right or wrong. So if that's something you really want to pursue, possibly having some kind of an open house workshop thing, educate people on what you're doing, get enough people to participate and they want to come to us and convince us otherwise, that might be a different story. But I think in the current situation as it is and everybody speaking to their minds, I think at the moment, the proper course is probably just deny it.
Excuse me, are you guys going to every county and choosing locations?
No.
To do the seismic?
We just have three, so we have a crew here locally, we just finished up one of those baseline surveys in Underwood.
Yep.
And then they wanted to confirm that there's good locations to do a 3D survey, the next step. And so we've got 2 locations over in Stutsman County and one over here. And we're looking for a place for the Spiritwood plant to sequester carbon.
And they have no location, no spot up in that area with the geology?
We did a survey for them back in '21, and back where we looked there, the layer wasn't quite deep enough nor thick enough. And it's the deadwood layer they're looking to sequester the carbon in, and it gets deeper and thicker as you move west, and so that's why we're looking further west this time.
I'm gonna ask you, just to clear my own thinking, how can they guarantee the general public to pump the sequestered CO2 into these formations of rock formation and sand, that this will not leach? It's not a sealed bag. It's a rock formation that's porous. How can they guarantee that to the general public, to our well-being of water?
To be honest with you, I'm a layman, and what I know is seismic.
Okay.
So I only generally know the CO2 sequestration. And like I said, they have very specific requirements where they have to look for a good solid cap, which would be shale in this instance. And then they need the right sand layers for the pore space underneath. And then they're required to do these tracking surveys like the baseline we just did. And then as the CO2 goes in, then they track that as it spreads out and keep track of it over time.
It's so misleading what they're doing to the public, I feel. They say they want to store it forever, but yet there's others on the end of the pipeline that want to use it for fracking. And it's got such a big question mark to the general public.
Yeah, I don't think we're involved in any, I mean, fracking is something completely.
Totally different, but you're just looking for you're looking for the formations.
Yeah, and that's what we do, we're just imaging, that's all we're looking for.
Well, like I said, 3,000 feet, that's what artesian dam there is, 2,800, 3,000 feet. So, and there's underground rivers. What happens if they get into underground rivers?
If there were things like that, it would show up in our imaging.
Yeah, I know, but eventually over time, they pump it in the ground, they want to see where it goes. Well, pretty soon, maybe it's going to get in a river. So how are they going to stop that?
Well, in the baseline survey we just did, they're only expecting it to expand out like a mile-ish. So we did basically a grid of 3 by 3, and that's what they're expecting to track it in. So my understanding is it wouldn't spread that far, but again, layman.
Right, just remember, guys, these guys are here to do the baseline work. Right, they're here to do the seismic and the baseline work and the survey and give the information to the people that are going to do the project, so.
And what I can tell you is I will be on site and make sure that our operation runs correctly.
Sure.
Doesn't damage anything. That's what I'm here.
I think the direct questions with that is just that I don't think any one of us is probably experienced with seismic. I mean, like we spoke earlier, I'm even in kind of the engineering survey type field, and I only know of it from what I've probably seen in some engineering magazines, but so even the questions from that with the vibrations and all that is, I mean, you made us smarter commissioners today, at least if that makes you feel a little better, Yes, I know. Probably a small consolation, but, I don't want you to feel like it's just like, oh, we don't like what you're doing, or it's part of a broader picture, and with us not having all the information we probably even need on all this stuff, the proper way is to probably at least temporarily deny you for this point. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't ever come in here again and get out of here, it's just more so that, I think if different information is presented, different people, you have maybe just a different way of going about it, that there's a possibility it could still happen. For now, it's denied.
Okay, and like the next opportunity to come back and speak to you guys, do you have a monthly meeting or?
Yes, we meet the first Tuesday of every month.
First Tuesday.
Unless it's a special meeting, which is usually short notice, but yeah, typically the first Tuesday of every month, so if you wanna participate in our meetings, or if you wanna submit any kind of permits or anything, submit them at least, and try and submit them the Friday before, the first Tuesday of the month, and then probably be up for consideration, whatever that might be, and then also on the county website, there's several, there's the auditor's emails, and even like my email as the chairman, a few other commissioners, there's contact information if you wanna email information or things like that, or even like Josh, who's our, de facto, he's our GIS guy, but he helps out with zoning and permits and things too, if there's information, any one of them sources to get information to us is more than fine.
Okay, well, appreciate your time, guys.
Sure, thanks for coming in.
And if anything comes up that I can answer, you've got Art's contact information.
Sure.
Anything we can do that, I know it's a long shot, but we're still open.
Well, at least for the moment, like I said, the environment we're in, we're just, we're taking a lot more cautious approach to these projects, so I think at this time, that's how it is.
When you guys do that, can you tell if there's oil down there?
What they can do is they can image structures, and they generally have to tie that with the existing drill data, that sort of thing. So again, my experience is just with creating an image, so that's really what the rest of it's kind of out of my experience for the most part, so.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Do you know if Larry's out in the hallway or anything, or, I did have a missed call, and I'm wondering if that maybe was from Larry, but I thought I had his number. No, I do have Larry's number, so it wasn't from him, okay, so I thought, well, maybe he's calling them, we can't make it or something.
I didn't
There's nobody in the hallway, I wonder if Larry,
He was at the meeting.
What are you looking for?
well, right on our agenda here for 11:30 is, Larry Smith from the North Dakota Society of Professional Land Surveyors, and he's here to give us an update on easements for pipelines, but if he's not here, I did not hear from him if he wasn't coming or calling in or anything, so.
This isn't it.
Oh, is this easier?
No, I don't think that's good. Okay, no, I don't think that's good. Is there anything specific you want to be here, or are you just attending, Ron? Okay, no, that's fine, because we're kind of at the end of the agenda, so we're a little informal. If people come in and want to say things, we just kind of let them speak, so. Skylar, I guess that would be you, I guess. The only other thing is 2 building permits at the end, I think we can handle them in Michigan relatively quick, so.
He's got him.
Yeah, Joe?
How's half a step?
Okay. So how's the snow removal going?
Not bad.
It was going great till this morning again, right? I mean,
Well, it wasn't, no, it was blowing pretty bad last night, so.
I was gonna say, it seemed like some roads were staying open and other roads, I think the direction,
Yeah.
because I heard a lot of east-west roads weren't that bad, the north-south roads were bad, and then when it switches, obviously that changes too, so.
Yep, you push the flow one way, hoping that the wind stays.
I will speak from the fact that I drove right behind my blade operator. He went by my place about 5:30 last night and opened up the road, and he did a wonderful job, and I went into town to pick up my daughter from daycare, and I came back at about 6 o'clock, and there was already pillow drifts on her, so, I literally followed him into town, and on the way back out, half hour, 45 minutes later, actually, the wind must have died down pretty nice overnight, because I thought it was gonna be blocked again until morning, so, but yeah, that's a tough.
Yeah, it's an
that's a tough
ongoing battle.
Man.
We're in a wet cycle, that's for sure.
Well, I knew we were gonna have to pay for it sometime.
Yeah, Mother Nature likes us so. I really don't have much on the agenda today, except for we've been, as you guys have all known, I've been working on, pay structure for the employees out at the road departments and everything like that. So I've done that now with the jet pay increases and actually in your packet, there's a salary structure and an hourly structure, and then with a job plan. One of the employees out there. So, that's just kind of for the equipment and facilities manager, that's just kind of a few key points that I just jotted down and take note. It doesn't cover everything, it just covers a few things.
Kind of a starting.
The starting point, I mean, we'd be 3-4 pages long if we listed everything that's, so I'm happy to ask any answer any questions that you guys may know about this, but, with all of this, I guess, we figured with an additional 2 employees, this pays to one, just to fill in the one that we're looking for, but there is room for another additional employee, and then I will still be under budget. So, leading, with that being said, with under budget, I mean, there's still enough in our budget to hire some real, or some temporary, and still be.
And even these like suggested hourly pays, that was a part of your budget.
Correct, that is all part of my budget.
Okay.
And
Because the reason there was a miscalculation, like we talked before, is historically, the road superintendent didn't figure wages as a part of his budget, like that was always the commissioner's area, and so that's where when we did the raises, and you were asking for additional, but you actually had that in your budget, which we approved.
correct,
So
this
that's
is all covered under our budget that. you guys
right,
approved.
you're not asking for additional funds now after the fact.
No additional funds, just, I
And
guess this is pretty much clarifying what, I guess, probably should have happened during the budget hearing or.
with it being your first budget cycle, it's a little forgivable. I mean, now that you know kind of how it works here, you probably have a little difference. So your grade and step scenario is all correlating with this chart, and I'm assuming it probably has something to do with probably a little bit of tenure or longevity, also combined with probably their skills and how you evaluated them. Is that kind of how this is?
Correct, yeah, because that's why their hire dates are there for that, and then their skill set and stuff like that. And then, as you notice on this sheet, on this pay structure, it's kind of like an arc. It starts out, and then it gradually gets bigger, and then the longer you've been here, it starts falling back off, so you're not constantly increasing quite a bit.
Sure.
It's just for hopefully I mean, we've got some pretty fairly new employees there, so we need to look at longevity for these employees, plus we're looking for new hires, so with this being said, when you approve it, we'll be able to change our ad out and offer a little bit more starting money to hopefully pull some more applicants in there, because it's been open, for a month now, month and a half, and we got one, so. So I don't think this is anything out of the ordinary, this is stuff that probably should have been started 10 years ago.
Well, Rick, that's one thing I think we've all discussed, and even over the last couple of years, is trying to figure out some kind of pay structure that's brings fairness to the employees and to the taxpayers, not that we're just giving raises for any reason, or we're starting people too low, or like the other scenario where we had guys working in the road department 12 years, and the guy that gets newly hired gets paid the same after his probation period, which was more of just the case of, well, we didn't know what to do, so we just paid them all the same. Well, that's unfair to some of the guys that are maybe have more options or anything like that too, as far as, their abilities to work in other shops or do anything like that too, so.
And a few of these, this pay structure is actually modeled after different counties, so I mean, other counties are kind of using this pay structure, so it's nothing we created new.
Right, I mean, this looks like it's relatively similar to Burley County.
Pretty
modified.
close, modified a little bit.
Because I've seen that one, there's a lot of other department heads.
That looks like a pretty good deal, I think.
Well, other department heads have brought it forward, at least it's consistent with something, rather than trying to reinvent the wheel, which I think is.
And then when you do go into budget talks, you can use this as, you can do a cost of living increase and a step, or just a step. I mean, it gives you a few different options. You can do nothing, obviously, but
So when you put a guy in a certain step, when do you feel he moves up? Once a year or as?
yeah, it'd be the budget
Cycle.
like during the budget cycle. Like, we can talk about that during the budget cycle, but kind of give our,
Or, I
we'll
mean,
budget for what we think that what step they need to be moved to, or if anything, and then.
so what I mean, if you got a guy that started out at step 2 and 6 months down the road, while he's doing pretty good, do you move him up in the middle of the year?
I don't know if we take that big of a hike. But, I mean, there's always that option, you know, we're gonna have a couple employees coming off probation. So I think something we could discuss during their probationary period, or after their probational period, if we wanna move them a step or off of their job performance and stuff like that.
I think something that probably needs to happen as a part of the budgeting process is when you come in to submit at least your preliminary budget, that's when you correlate the step increases. Like, hey, these 2 guys are gonna be going up here, so now you'll know about you'll know what their new wage would be. You can calculate a budget based off the new wages. So you have to basically set your wages so that we can calculate a budget that fits that. And then, you know, there might be years where it's like, 4 guys making a step, we might have to reevaluate and that needs to correlate with your process because that's how you're gonna run your department. Are these guys, do they deserve a promotion, a demotion, or do they just deserve to stay where they're at? Or, you know, that all needs to correlate with your process too, because with us, we're doing a budget. That money needs to work plus or minus. We might know how some guys are doing out there, but for the most part, your evaluation needs to, because otherwise, our budgeting process, we're probably not gonna get wages right. Some guys are gonna probably get underpaid, some are maybe getting overpaid, because they maybe deserved a demotion or promotion, and that needs to come from your department. So I wanna say thank you for bringing this, because this is the step in the right direction. Whether or not it's perfect or how we wanna do it, at least this is the proper process, where you have a process and you finalize it, you bring it to us, and then we, you know, work with it.
Yeah.
Right, and I mean, because I don't think the commissioners handling the promotions and demotions all the time is the best, because we're not out there every day, we're not working with everybody, and.
Well, at least you got something you can look at, you can, you know.
Right, and I think it's something you can build off of. You might look at it and go, and this guy realizes he's at this step and he thinks he should be on the same step as him. Well, hopefully that's a tool where he's going, okay, I need to, you know, hopefully up my game to get where I need to be. And if you recognize that, then you keep making adjustments, so we're always just trying to be on the same plane, rather than certain raise one year, certain raise other, some guy really doing good, some guy really doing bad, and that's all just our input, so. I mean, the department is yours with that, I mean, that's where that responsibility comes, so. But I think it's as good, I mean, at least it's a good start, I mean, I'd like to look at it a little
So
more.
this,
evaluate it, but-
equipment and facilities manager, would that be John Ibox?
Correct. We need to put a title to them eventually, so, I mean, a lot of work that goes on in the office that nobody sees.
Well, and I think in fairness to just everyone involved, the employees, the commissioners, the public, everybody, if you're gonna have a specific employee doing specific duties, you need to create that job, and then you need to decide a pay that's in line with that job, you know, whether that's more, less, whatever, but it's not fair to label an employee as a specific position and ask them to do more and then not either compensate them or ask them to do less, or, you know, we want you to do more work for the same pay. Well, no, I'll do less work. We don't want you to do less work. Well, you gotta give them the job that either defines what is the proper role of work, so.
I think that's what this would do here, give.
Right, I think that's exactly, and that's what is needed, I think, and if guy wants to make additions, or, you know, like Skylar said, there's probably more duties than just on here, but this is probably the nuts and bolts of it. I mean, this is the.
For real, I mean, this is an outreach, I mean, I can bury you in paperwork with what all happens.
Right.
So.
Okay. I think it looks good.
I do too. That's a good deal.
Anything else?
What are we gonna vote on, are you guys?
Oh, I don't think so. I'd like to take a look at it and check it out some more.
We don't
I
want.
mean, I'm fine with that. I like that you brought the stuff forward. I'd like to take a look at it more and think about it. I mean, it's.
So, you're talking about, you wanna implement it right away, right?
I would've. Yeah. I mean,
I think it's something we need to table and, you know, give it a chance to look it over.
Yeah, I'd like to look at it a little more and just go over.
I don't wanna jump to.
You didn't put that together, did you?
What's that?
You didn't put this together in 5 minutes.
In between snowstorms going on,
Okay, I got two of them.
I mean, we'll look at it, I guess, and take.
Yeah. We'll check it out a little bit, we can bring it up the next meeting.
So I guess if you guys, any of you guys have any questions about it, you can feel free to contact me or.
Sure.
You know, but other than that, no, I guess I really don't have much, it's not, other than snow removal operations, I mean, I will say, thank you to the general public, they've been a little bit more patient with going around, I think they finally realized it's winter. I mean, thank you for that, so, and we're all struggling,
A lot of trouble or not much trouble, or everything going good, or?
just the basic struggles, we breakdowns here and there, you know, the wind, and then. Oh, okay. We've been in pretty good contact with the school boards, and the school people like that, so we're on a group text, actually just got one here, they wanna know what the roads are gonna look like, so.
So they coordinate with you, if
Yeah,
they're gonna
it's a-
start later, things like that too, and
Yeah, they called for my suggestions, but I mean, like I told them, most of the time during snowstorms, our policy is always gonna be the same. When visibility increases to a safe operating standard, then we will go out. But until then, we can't risk our operators just trying to plow snow and no visibility and stuff like that, so.
Sure.
We're pretty much spinning our wheels, so. No, other than that, I guess.
one stretch of road that, got brought up that's, not saying it needs to get immediate attention or that it needs to be like the first thing done, but that 3rd Avenue between 82nd and 84th can be right by like Jerome and Rita Moss's place. It's basically, it's a cut across from 82nd to 84th, but I know that the mail and the school bus route prefer to use that, so.
So north and south road.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think, like you said, you could go out there on day one and get it open, but when you're in the area, that's a road that they would like to see. I know Jerome and some of the guys have been opening it themselves, and a lot of times when I get a call, it's more so that the road is probably open, but they really want the V-plow to go through because they're opening it with just like a motor bucket, and it's 5 feet high on both sides, and as soon as the wind comes up, it socks it in, so. I mean, that's kind of been a lot of the calls I got. I mean, they're courteous. I mean, nobody's complaining. It's more so just that they don't wanna see us maybe abandon it or leave it too long, so. But when you're getting snowfall on Friday and then snowfall on Monday, like I try to explain to people, it kind of restarts the route because you always have your main priorities, which is your initial school bus routes. And I know the cut across are nice, but they might have to take the long way sometimes because you can't get it all open day one, but that's just something just to remember. I know the bus and the mail are, you know, they really would like to see that open, I mean, as soon as reasonably possible.
Right now, we're averaging, with the last one, was about 3.5 days to get everything open.
Right, which is
So that's well within a reasonable time.
perfectly acceptable, yes,
Perfectly
yeah,
timed
right.
example. I mean, the more snow we get, I mean, obviously it might start slowing down a little bit, we might go to 4 days.
Well, I think what happens is people will see the blade go by, and then they won't hit that road, and they're like, oh no, they're not gonna open it, it's like, well, no, they have a lot of other roads that need to get open first, and especially some of them roads, like I told them, I said, if you have it open, and it's 4:30 in the afternoon, and they know they got 20 more miles to get done, they go, well, it's open, I'll come back to it later, and then they drive by, and so, like I said, it's more so just you know, I know you're probably doing it, and whenever you get to it is fine, but that's just one road that I got a couple calls on, people like to make sure it stays open within reason.
So what are you doing if you got a snowstorm now and you're going to open his roads and then, you never got to the end yet, we got another storm?
Sometimes you gotta start over with your primary roads, so that's just the nature of the beast. I mean, our Fed Lake roads are kind of our own.
Well, that's okay, but then the ones that never got open last time, way at the end, they get open at the end again, or how does that work?
Most likely, yes. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can make it, if they're not as bad, like if we didn't get as bad of a snowstorm, we could probably shift.
Okay.
But it's a storm by storm basis. I mean, for the most part, or for always, our policy's the same. We're gonna open our main roads first, and then you live on the end of out in the boonies or whatever, and you're the last one out there. you're probably gonna be the last. Someone's always gotta be first and someone's always gotta be last.
Well, and I know sometimes the conversation is, well, they always open that road first, and what I always tell people is sometimes that's the road to get to the road they need to get to first. So the only other way to do it would be to drive the highway. Well, why do we want county blades on the highway? So they take one or two roads to get to the federal aid road or to that specific bus route road we wanna get open day one. So some of those roads, I mean, if that's the road you live on, you're lucky, and if you're not, then that's the way it is, but.
And a lot of the operators, including myself, like, you get to know your roads a lot, so you know which ones are the really bad ones. Some of the roads, the main roads aren't that bad, people are breaking through them, and then you can go hit the ones that are a little worse, that people
Right.
aren't gonna be able to get through.
Right.
Paul Holzer reached out last night, you know Paul? His wife Jill was dealing with cancer.
Sorry, who was that?
Paul Holzer,
Heard the name.
it's over there by Johansson's Road, on that main road where Terry Holzer's Dairy Farm is at. We identified as off of 83. What street
Oh,
is
it's
it?
82nd.
Yep.
Yeah.
82nd. He asked, he said, is anybody running a blade, and in reference to his wife.
Yep, I was actually gonna do that road and then someone broke down because we had the shift. So I was gonna do it yesterday, but it'll get done, like, we know that, that's a road that walks pretty heavily too, so, we kind of changing our priority with that one a little bit, so. But that being said, it's still a county road, it's not our high one, I mean, sorry that she is dealing with medical issues, but I just don't want this to open a Pandora's box and everybody calling in with a medical issue thinking that we can make their road a priority. We get it, I mean.
But I think with that one too, I mean, 82nd and 84th are kind of the heartbeats of West.
It is, and you're right, and but we have, that's broke into, that road is broke into two different sections, it's north of 13 and then south of 13 there, so north of 13's got all our federal aid
But
on it.
I don't think anybody's calling to just like demand being first. I think a lot of it is their fear that they don't want to be last. And obviously someone has to be last, but I think the phone calls start coming in where they're like, hey, I seen him go by on Monday, it's Wednesday morning. Well, you're probably I have had so many calls where people call me at 10 in the morning and the blade goes by at noon. And sometimes I haven't even gotten a call yet. I hate to tell people, actually, I like taking credit, but my point is there's sometimes where people must even like have a little ESP, cause they're like, oh, is the blade coming? And literally an hour or two later, they like must have been on the way when that phone call got made, so.
I know Dave Bauman called me out there, he says, aren't they coming, oh, just a minute, they're coming, here they
Well,
come.
I even had a moment in my yard where I'm like, man, Al hasn't been by my place, and all of a sudden, literally, it was like 20 minutes later, I heard the wing scrape, and I was like, oh, here he comes, so I know sometimes those phone calls come in, they're just more so wanting to know where things are at, and I got another call one day, a guy was gonna bust himself open, but he didn't wanna do it if the blade was on the way, and I said, well, I can't answer that without making a few phone calls, and then it was like an hour later, the blade went by, so I think a lot of those phone calls, they've been mostly courteous, people are just wanting to know when mostly, which is hard to answer, but that's something we can just work on in the future too, is maybe try and get a little more information out there, like we talked, maybe like a color map coordinating where we start and at least to give people an idea. Doesn't mean it's set in stone, but in the future too, that's something we can kind of try and work on.
I got a question. Do you have communication with Lytton and Hazelton School? Do you know when they're closed or they're gonna be late? Do you?
Yeah, I'm on there, we're on a group text and then,
So you do get no?
yeah, Linton will actually, they send out a phone,
Okay,
saying
I
what the
just
parents
wanted you
get.
to, I wanted you to make sure,
Yeah, I'll
that
get
way,
that same one.
yeah.
Someone will call me and we chit chat in the mornings or talk about mornings.
How about Strasburg down there?
I got a text message from
They do that.
somebody from Strasburg.
So when it snows, like the day before it's down, do you guys start earlier or is it always at 7?
Most of the time it's just at 7, I mean, like, well, the reason that being is with these last couple of snowstorms, it's quitting at 10 o'clock.
Right, I know, but I was just wondering, you got a snowstorm at night, like, say Monday night, and then, the school buses run early in the morning. I was just curious if
But here's the thing, I told in that meeting with the school board, and I talked to the superintendents and stuff like that. Even if it quit snowing at 3 o'clock in the morning, and we started at 4, we're never gonna get every road open for the
You wouldn't
buses.
get it.
So the buses are in Texas, they drive a lot quicker than us, it's just.
Right. Okay.
So, but we've talked about it, like, we've been running a little later now at night, cause it's, stays, well, yeah, it stays late.
It used to be dark at 4:30. Yeah, it's staying in time right now.
I think we rolled in last night at like 7.
How's the new guy working out?
Seems to be doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Still some learning curves, but I mean, it's, what can you expect when you throw the rules right away?
Boy, what a training lesson though, under probation, under fire, possible records, snowfall, yeah, get out there.
Well, I think I don't know what our total is around here, but it's 75, 76 inches so far.
82 in Bismarck.
Is it 82 in
The
Bismarck?
record's 101.7, we're 19.5 inches away from the record, that was last night at 10.
Yeah, so we're gonna get that.
We're in there, I mean, we're gonna be in the ball, we're gonna be in the top
I
five.
know I can run the store.
We're gonna be in the top five winter, we're in the 97, 09, all that ranges, which usually brought horrible things with it too, so it's not over, even when the weather gets nice, it just creates a different, you're still dealing with the snow till May and June, it's just in a different form. So, yeah, so.
Okay, no, I think unless you guys have any other questions, I'm.
Okay, no, I think everything's going reasonably well. Mailman.
I just wanted to mention either any of you commissioners, on my mailbox, it's amazing how fast it's out. Or, you know, where I can at one road, I sit there and there's a mud.
I probably didn't even make that phone call in time, but I'll take credit for it, like you said, we're probably on the way, but.
I was, oh, great, that's, that's both, stick to the main road that goes down, take a U-turn. I was nervous, we might have pulled out.
Well, I think the guys have been doing pretty good. I think with the weather being what it's been, I think especially early in the year, there was probably a little bit of a rough patch. I think we made some good adjustments and I feel like we're doing a lot better. And I think the public made some adjustments. A lot of people are moving a lot of their own snow or they got neighbors to help out or they're just waiting. I think it's been better too. So overall, I think we're in better shape now than we were probably in January. So I think that, I mean, that's got a lot to do with you and your guys too. So I'd say nice work too.
Great.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Skylar.
There's you.
Your folders are right there.
Yep. Larry. You know, I guess I never realized it, that's why Larry wasn't here, we were way ahead. Larry wasn't on until 11:30, so I was even thinking, I'm like, oh, he's probably not coming, then I had a missed call, so I thought maybe it was for you, so.
It's ugly out there.
Yeah, well, you're up, Larry.
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I think most of you know me, my name's Larry Smith. I'm a professional land surveyor here in North Dakota and South Dakota. I've been doing this for about 50 years. And I have here for you, today I'm representing the North Dakota Society of Professional Land Surveyors. We're the professional group for our profession, shall we say. And due to pipelines and other items coming up, we just wanted to bring to your attention, and this is a copy of a letter that we have sent to the PSC, and I'll be presenting that letter to the PSC on March 14th in Bismarck, and it'll be presented to each of the Public Service Commission meetings throughout the state. There are various members of our group that will be doing that. I'll be doing at least 2 of them. But if I could, I'd just like to read this letter to you and then explain the attachments. And this is to the Public Service Commissions. Dear Chair, the North Dakota Society of Professional Land Surveyors, NDS-PLS, encourages that all utility corridor easements within the state of North Dakota be strip easements, not blanket easements, for all utilities such as, but not limited to, overhead and underground electrical lines and water, oil, and gas pipelines. Blanket type easements create a needless servitude or non-apparent restrictions on the grantor's use of real property over an adequate parts of a section where a strip easement would satisfy the easement need of the grantee, the pipeline.
North Dakota State Department of Trust lands and federal lands do not allow for the use of blanket easements on their land holdings. Furthermore, practicing professional land surveyors follow these guidelines. The state of North Dakota already has requirements codified for the licensed land surveyors to follow under North Dakota Century Code 47-05-02.1. Land surveyors are bound by the North Dakota Administrative Code 28-02.1-13-01. Survey requirements for the preparation of legal descriptions and conveyance of property. Land surveyors are bound by the North Dakota Attorney General's Opinion 2017-L-03, dated May 12, 2017, indicating that pursuant to North Dakota Century Code 43-19.1-30, the items which need to be included as exhibits relevant to documents or attachments, as well as when they are the main documents being recorded. These documents must include the signature and seal of a North Dakota Registered Professional Land Surveyor, even if the document is part of an exhibit or an attachment to an easement. NDS-PLS encourages the use of the North Dakota State Plain Coordinate System per North Dakota Century Code 47-20.2 as a base coordinate system for the use of used for a universal surveying mapping system. We are requesting the Public Service Commission to review all aspects of utility easements and to ensure that all current laws and rules for easements in North Dakota are followed as part of the review process for this permit. Respectfully submitted, the North Dakota Society of Professional Land Surveyors. And by extension, we're asking the Emmons County Commission to adapt this same ordinance or requirement into the ordinance that you'll be going through now. On the attached pages are all the laws cited in the letter. So if you have any questions, you can read them there and exactly what it says. And these are nothing new. This is not something we just sprung up. These have been in existence for years. You know, all we're saying is that here are the rules that are out there, and that what I must follow with my license, the other surveyors in North Dakota. So we're asking that all easements and legal documents be done according to the statutes and Attorney General's opinion we have now. So with that, it's a two-bit explanation, but I'd stand for any questions that you have about it.
So you're basically just asking everybody to follow the laws that are already on the books?
Yes. Mr. Chairman.
Which is not a monumental ask, that's pretty reasonable, so.
These have been here and I have to follow them, and everybody should do them.
I think the county really has to follow the state century code.
I think what they're doing is probably just raising more awareness to make sure that they are properly being followed and there are laws in place that, you know, because not everybody's a century code textbook, you know, like you said, it's kind of like we discussed about earlier.
Well,
I mean, North Dakota and Emmons County, we're maybe a little behind the times in some of these things, and now we have to reassess how we apply the laws and how we're doing some of these things. And I mean, we always kind of been like, oh, they're doing it the right way, approve their permit, approve their easement, approve their, you know, they're doing it the right way. And we're finding out that there's a lot of laws on the books that maybe aren't even, people maybe don't quite understand or even there, so.
Well, our professional society is not for or against the pipeline. That's our stance. However, we are in support of following the laws that are here, and also felt that we need to bring these out to the attention of the people. And what we're doing, this is going to the PSC, and we're gonna get it to every county commission along this pipeline route, just so that people know, here's what you gotta do. So if hypothetically, let's say that Emmons County has a permit process whereby you need to submit A, B, C, and D to get your permit. Well, part of that might be E, that you don't have to restate this, but just says that has to be done by a professional land surveyor and follow these codes, and just, North Dakota 47 dash, yada, put it in there, and then they have to do it. And the question comes up of enforcement. My opinion, I think it comes down to the county level. I mean, really, I believe any private citizen could probably make a complaint with the state's attorney. There's various ways, but I really think this comes down to protecting the residents in Emmons County, or Burley County, or Dickey County, wherever, that they don't have a blanket easement out there that they have to deal with the rest of their life or on through their family. And it's done right.
So what you're saying is these pipelines, or some of these people have their own surveyors that come in here and think they can survey it the way they want, but they're not really following the state.
Exactly. I didn't do it recently, but I did check in Emmons County, did Burley County recently, and all the easements that I looked at in the last probably 3 weeks ago were all blanket easements.
They're all blanket.
They're all blanket, that I looked at, and I don't know, I don't remember. In Burley County, there are 37 total, and 34 of those, I believe, were blanket easements, and the other 4 were memorandums of easement, which are very, very vague.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And they're, I don't know if any of you have seen them, but they're not good. And those numbers, I don't remember. I know that there were 4 in Burley County left, and I was gonna check this morning, and see, but I didn't, got going a little.
The verbiage on those 4, Larry, are what?
Memorandums of easements.
Yep, okay.
And they're really vague. If you get a chance to look at one, do it. I was gonna make some copies of that, but
So are you saying those are recorded, or they're about to be recorded?
They are recorded.
They are recorded.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them recorded in Emmons County in the blanket easements. In other words, they just say the pipeline's over the northeast quarter, section 60.
No meets and bounds, no degrees.
Nothing that matches this.
So who is the surveyor on them? Their own surveyors?
It just says Summit Pipeline. So, and I'm sure what they have is a subcontract to a company to prepare those, and comments I've received from residents in both Burley and Emmons County is that they're probably just contract surveyors. They hire, that probably do a lot of pipeline work, have come up here and basically do what they're told by a technician somewhere.
Right, or they have reciprocity in North Dakota, or they can purchase their license if they're qualified in another state, right? I mean, if they meet the qualifications of the NDSPLS and the Century Code, they can essentially just purchase their license in North Dakota, right?
Correct, they can get it by reciprocity.
Right.
I didn't check recently, but the company that's doing that, there were 3 people licensed as professional surveyors in North Dakota. 2 are in the New England states, I think 1 in Pennsylvania. The New England states is a whole different ballgame. Out here in the western states, as it's known, we have section, township, and range. We're all familiar with that. The New England states has a totally different system. It's all meets and bounds and irregular, and it's a total different
But it's so much
system.
older, right? I mean, that's the reasoning, right? That it's so much older
Exactly,
than the.
for settlements.
Right.
And then the people that are there do it that way, that's what they work in. But are they familiar with the public land system out here? There's one other surveyor that is recorded out here with that company, and I believe he resides in Montana. I haven't checked recently. And he was here on one property owner's place sometime this summer for an hour or 2, I guess.
I think the one that you and I found, that CAP in Highway 34, and I believe they had an office in Manning, and they were licensed in North Dakota, but they were actually an Alabama firm, I think, that time.
Yeah, and
somewhere down south, but they were licensed in North Dakota, I don't wanna make it sound like they're not licensed, but
no.
they're out-of-state firms that they meet the qualifications to be licensed in North Dakota, and they either purchase a license or have reciprocity.
Yes.
Similar to a lot of other permits in a lot of other industries, but that's where Larry's concern might be that their system of surveying, depending on where they're coming from, may not exactly correlate to ours too.
In most cases, but otherwise, if there's a professional land surveyor registered in North Dakota out there supervising, I don't have a problem with that. I'm great with that.
So how about if they go around our back and do it? If they go and survey it without the county's permission? I mean, how they,
Well, you don't really, well, there's certain survey laws that are being introduced and things now about permission to land access, and a lot of these folks are probably working within the right of way, so there's not a lot of permission to be granted. I mean, they're basically.
Let me ask you this, based on the law, as you're spelling it out here, these memorandums and these blanket easements of record, will they stand?
My opinion, no.
They shouldn't, right?
They really shouldn't even be recorded in that respect, though.
Well,
they can record them.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, here's how I see it, the recorder is doing her job. She has an obligation to record a document.
Sure.
The Attorney General has issued an opinion that says, if you put an attachment with that, to that easement, any exhibit, and if it's a map or an easement, it has to be signed by a professional land surveyor. That is not there. It just says, I have an easement on the northeast quarter of 16 of your property. And that's all it says for the description. There are some things that will refer to an exhibit B, et cetera, but I haven't seen any of that in the documents in the recorder's office. Now, I haven't looked at every document, but I scanned for easements that were prepared by Summit Carbon, and that's what I saw. But I mean, it's very easy. We're not talking to Kathy and we can get one. And they're there. And I encourage you to read one. If you'd like, I can get Kathy to make some copies. They're pretty interesting. They're pretty big. And I don't think that's doing a service to the citizens of this county.
Well, I guess I can just say from my own behalf, thank you for bringing this even forward to us, or at least just making aware of this, because it's, I mean, these are things that need to be taken into consideration, is whether or not things are getting done properly, and
part of that, and then just to encourage you to incorporate this into your, I know you have one started, your permit process for pipelines or whatever. And that's, I think because it's there, it should be followed. Same as we have speed laws we have to follow, we gotta pay our taxes. Can't park in the middle of the street. I mean, they're for public benefit and safety. But if there are any other questions or anybody needs more of this, please let me know and I'm happy to answer them or be of any assistance that I can.
I don't have any more questions, but yeah, I do appreciate you bringing the information in, and definitely your contact information if something arises.
Okay.
Larry, if you do have an easement, one of those easements, these blanket easements of this county, would you email it to us, guys?
Oh, yeah, I'll look some up for you.
Okay.
I may have some moment, just this weather, I figured, I better get going a little bit early. So, yeah, I will get them to you.
Okay, I can go upstairs and pull one, but just so everybody gets one.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. And they're public information, they're in the recorder's office. So.
yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. If we have, issue out a permit to have that in there, in that permit deal, stating that they have to have a.
Well, I think you just cite these century code here and they gotta follow it. I think if you make them aware of the century code, you're doing a job. It's not the commission's job to educate them. It's to, say, here it is, now here's what you've got to do. So, that's my opinion. So any other questions? If not, I thank you much for taking some time for me. And I'm gonna go back home and shovel snow.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good trip back. He just wants a good buddy, it's great. He wants a good buddy, it's great. He wants a good buddy. Where did it go?
I think so. So these other ones that filed these easements, we have no recourse in trying to,
I would say state's attorney general, gives it blanket.
All right. Well, with that, I think the only other things on the agenda is, well, basically the bills and then the building permits, so. Josh, the, first building permit is for Tate Share to erect a 30,000 bushel grain bin in the southwest quarter of section 28, the township 130-1, range 70.
I must be able to dispose.
Thanks for coming in, Larry, appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Larry.
that's it.
131-70.
Pretty standard grain bins are outside the setbacks, so they're, I see no issue with either one of these. And use the full map and that.
How far is he off the right?
Tate's was
300.
375 feet, so ours setback is 125 feet off of main road, so that's far enough back. And then Taylor's, the next one is 200 feet.
200 feet, yeah.
So that's 75 feet further than that in line broken.
I'll make a motion.
So, hang on, so Commissioner Everly is making a motion to approve the permit for Tate Share.
Right.
Okay, so Commissioner Everly's made a motion to approve the building permit for Tate Share to erect a 30,000 bushel grain bin on the southwest quarter of section 28, township 131, range 78. Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Commissioner Materi, is there any more discussion? Not hearing any, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Permit approved. Second building permit is for Taylor Grunfelder to erect two 36,000 bushel grain bins in the northeast quarter of section 9, township 134, range 74.
Yeah, same kind.
Yeah.
So 75 feet for one.
Setbacks are good, so no, there's not much else to look at, I guess, so.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Commissioner Materi makes a motion to approve the building permit for Taylor Grunfelder to erect two 36,000 bushel grain bins on the northeast quarter of section 9, township 134, range 74. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Everly. Is there any more discussion on the building permit? Not hearing any, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Permit approved. No other business before the board? The bills are the next order.
Oh, kinda nice we got out early.
It was storm.
Yeah, it's starting to snow pretty good from the looks of it. Dave, I think I'll trade
What are you
seats.
supposed to get, another 10 to 15?
Another 45
Here,
to
why don't you just
75
roll over?
inches for the next 55. I don't know, it just changes, it's, I don't know. Pretty bad when you always say, oh, it's not as bad as 97, and now you're going, okay, it might actually start getting as bad as 97, I mean, you just don't know.
Here, you need this.
I do need to
You
sign
need
the
this.
one permit, the
Here.
rest of it is done.
You need this for your order.
Probably to paper.
Take it with it, we'll
Yeah.
see it's attached.
Well, Race Lake will probably fill up a little bit again, huh? I was gonna say, it's starting to get a little. 97 is gonna fill up the first time the incident. Well, 97 filled up everything and kind of stayed, like even Westlake and Napoleon, all that kind of got. Now then it's been connected here, right? 96, still like just about. Rice or Westlake? Well, I remember, but even back in, that must have been 2009 or so. That, yeah. That, I mean, we drove around that lake all week, like, so deep, like 9 or 10 feet. Now, I mean, even with it, it's gone down, what? 5, 6 feet? And it's still got some deep holes in it. Yeah. That's the thing, worse is. Yeah, it's all pretty full. Yeah, I know. You don't miss fishing out of the chicken coop? No. Well, that's a joke we always made, Donnie can see fish swimming in his chicken coop, you know? Yeah, that one year you even said there were fish, that you don't even need a fish house, you just go to the chicken coop, fire up a heater. Well, I know, that's what I figured too. I'm gonna have to go and, double check my sump pumps again here now in another week, cause it's starting to get to the point where you're gonna start having to worry.
I should get you a little cellar with sand and put cement on the top of it and done deal.
Well, yeah, then the other problem too, well, it was probably the same deal down by Mal and the elevator and stuff too, I'm sure that thing's gonna come up, at least a little bit.
The thing will melt it real slow.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're a long ways from that yet, true. I'll say one thing, the snow that's out there, it's gonna take some work to melt it though. I mean, this new stuff's one thing, but, I mean, I got a picture, I got a mountain next to my shop in Hazelton that me and Warren Stramer share with our properties, and Warren will push it up and then we take our blower and blow it to the top. That's like a giant cube of ice, that'll take months to melt that, like, it'll take 70.
It'll be a long time.
It'll take warm rain, like you'd have to have a deal like that, otherwise that pile is gonna be there for many moons, it's. So like that one ain't gonna be a fast melt, I don't care, unless it gets really warm all of a sudden.
What's the point of Joe? That's what Joe has seen. Yeah, I just hope it isn't bad.
Yeah, well.
I mean, ice.
Be a good year if you have a stock dam, maybe. Of course, it might be too good, might wash it out.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming, Kelly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If you have a K-minute prevent, that's what that. Get your shit. You can't read it anyway.
When was the last time you got a good lick? When was the last time you got a good lick?
No, I'm worried about that.
Rough rider, is it with a diesel?
I think, is, yeah.
Says 670.
You gotta get Joe up here a little closer.
Move the bathtub.
It doesn't work so.
I don't like it. They should be over here. Yeah, I don't like it.
You guys have.
Josh, I don't like his table shows that.
What are you guys thinking?
It should either be.
Yeah, you block that projector. It would be nice if we had a big TV to set up, because you know that projector has all that noise.
Yeah, I
If
don't,
it was like mounted,
Big team right there.
or, yeah. Yeah, sitting way back there.
Yeah, this is just our temporary setup.
Yeah, Joe should be back there.
Do you want to do that and Marcy go over there? But then, Marcy's different too. I can leave. I can leave here.
Joe right here.
Send the office or. Come on, Doug. Yeah, I'll talk to Craig and see.
Yeah, you can't sit up here.
No, they don't want anybody here or behind this line, because we had to move Marcy, because the state's like, they shouldn't be using Anita's.
I would put him right in here.
So we had to move that desk back and put that table there.
I can't use that desk.
Because of the state has their equipment back here.
I was mentioning.
The most serious on the first. We've seen some. We've seen some. We use it for how many months? Yeah,
No, so, which desk, look at this one.
That's the new one.
Oh, $700.
Yeah, it's a custom made.
Oh, they don't match it.
They got covered.
I'll sit back where Joe's at, I wouldn't mind sitting there.
No, you can't do that. No, you can't be back there because there's somebody, it's hard to communicate to about that.
You should.
Well, yeah, sometimes he barely talks, but then it's like, hey, you probably can't hear him.
You can't hear.
Hear him on the floor.
It doesn't look good, we got our current, and he's back in the corner.
What would that be back?
Yeah, so we're I don't know, we have to talk to state too, because we can't just permanently have something in the courtroom, you know? Well, we won't tie to it, so I won't see it.
You could attach it up there.
Yeah, Craig looked into like a drop down.
We have a checker.
Then I was, it was too much, it'd be better just to put a big screen, if that would work.
Right, it's anything up there and be done. That's what I would do.
I think, didn't we put $5,000 in the budget this year to, that would actually, I thought we had a $5,000 in the budget to prepare the board to.
We took it out, we can get in.
Me and Craig will.
Can you put a TV in here?
They don't, at first we thought back there, but then they're staying back there, so. I don't know, I'll talk to Lee and have her talk to Steve.
Trying to get pipe and fittings delivered today. Delivery guys having an interesting time getting the wheel thing. What's up?
Do you want me to talk about the tax department more, since right after Denise called, we're done? I mean, what's going on?
Yeah, you
No
can give an
extra
update.
help we're getting?
Okay, so yeah, just to kind of give a summary, I guess, so. Like we talked about before, I didn't feel comfortable having Denise work outside of the courthouse, just there's a lot of unknowns.
Here.
So what I did do is I met with Marlis, Josh, and Karina, who is the part-time assistant that we have in the tax office, and Ardell. And we just kind of came up with a game plan as to how we're gonna move forward as a group. The four of them are gonna basically work together how they can to get us to where we need to be with equalization and all the other stuff. So Josh is kind of the tip of the spear at it right now, and he's basically asking for assistance when he needs it, so Josh can kind of give an update on what's going on there and how the tax department's moving forward. And we also have the job out, we're listing the job, so we are looking for replacement too, so it's kind of, so go ahead, Josh.
So, right now we're working on sales inputs, so every time there's a deed comes through, the tax director will put in sales input, which shows how much things sell for their value, so we can figure out if we have to raise or decrease taxes. There's a lot that had to be put in the program that only Denise knew, because I never worked with that. So with her last day Friday, we gave a couple hours training to Karina how to do this, and it wasn't enough. So Vanguard is the company that runs this software, and we did all of our assessments back in the day. We get so many hours of them training, coming here and training and typing. So we're gonna use that up. I think we may have to buy more hours from them, because we don't understand, this program is hard to learn, you know, today. I had them call in last week and get Karina some training. But then once we get a new tax director, they're gonna have to
trained in on all their stuff too, so we may have to purchase more hours, and I think it's $130, $40 an hour. I think we have 20 minutes left to do that. So we're trying to get that done as soon as possible, because Ardell and Marlis have equalization meetings set up in April, starting the first week in April. And 10 days prior to that, notice the increases have to go out, I believe. But the only way we get that is if the sale gets put in, and then, I don't know, there's some fancy reports that Vanguard is gonna be for it, but we don't know what to do this. And I talked to Aaron about this, there may be an extra expense, but since we're not, paying Denise's salary and her benefits, it should be, taken out of that. I'm gonna work full-time. I worked Friday last week, I'll work Friday till we get this squared away. It's kind of bad timing.
Well, just to clarify one thing too, is when we had that meeting, I basically told Josh and Karina, who are not full-time employees, that if they have to put in extra time to get us where we need to be, that just do it. And same thing with, if we need to bring in Vanguard, or if we need to possibly work with another county tax director, which we've done in the past over the years when necessary, that if, just do it. So I kind of gave him permission to just get us where we need to be, so we're following the laws and the rules and getting everybody on track. So that's where, like with Josh saying he worked extra time, and I just, in that meeting, we just agreed we have to get it done, so.
Yeah, I'm just keeping track from under tax hours, so then it takes it out of the tax budget.
I'm taking on some meetings and some cities, and she's gonna take on some too, but I'm elected, I don't wanna get paid any extra, but she's an hourly employee, and she needs to get paid.
I agree, I think, and if she's using her own vehicle for mileage or whatever, like if she's driving to a town, it should be just like any other thing.
She's going north, it's gonna be me, and I'm going south, so we only have one company vehicle, so one of us will have mine.
It's kind of all hands on deck with that, and I think between the four of them, they felt like they could get us where we needed to be, and if we needed a little extra help, bring it on, so.
You're going over and above your duties too, then. Right?
I'm helping out.
Yeah, she's helping. She's doing good. We should be able to get it, as long as we get Vanguard's help next week. I'm still waiting a response because it's their busy season, they're helping with county revenue too, but they're willing to spend extra time.
I'll say also that the four people I met with, I never heard anything but yes, we'll do it, so I mean, kudos to them for taking it on, and not a one word other than sure, whatever we gotta do, we'll do it, so it's a pretty good meal. In the end of it, it was a pretty good meeting, and that was, I was in contact with those folks before the decision with Denise too, because before I came up with the decision that we weren't going to allow our tax assessor to do it, did we have the ability in this courthouse to get the job done if she wasn't here anymore? And they felt like they could do it, probably maybe not as good, but we could get enough done to get it where it needed to be. And so that's why, with my uncomfort with the policies, the unknowns of how that would work, being in West Fargo and trying to work here, and knowing that we had the folks in here that could do it, that was a decision I made. So I know Denise wasn't happy with it, and I'm not gonna talk about it anymore because she's not here to say anything either, but that's the reason I came up with the decision I came with. And I know at the last meeting, you guys had kind of said you're gonna leave it to me on how we were gonna do it. Well, as soon as I got the employee agreement with Burley County, and I'm like, this does not work with hardly anything in it. I mean, we could have made it work, I suppose, but it just seemed like a lot of hoops to jump through to try and make something work that maybe we all didn't feel maybe would have worked anyway. So that's why I erred on the side of caution with that.
I could have seen for a temporary basis until we got somebody trained, but
No, so. But anyway, so that's where that's where I landed on that, and Josh and those folks were more than happy to, I shouldn't say more than happy, but they were more than willing to step up and at least help us out, so I do appreciate that. I wanna thank you guys for that too.
Did you apply for it, or did you feel like
Yes, that tax director and the veteran service officer for the fiction speech. They've been on the website and on Facebook for a couple weeks. What I was waiting for is for Pam Binder. I wanted to see what we should have starting salary and for both positions. So I didn't get it in the paper last week because I was ready to get that.
Or anybody fall?
No, but not for tax director, I've gotten 2 or 3 calls for veteran service, but nothing for tax.
But they're both, or the tax director one's pretty new too, so I mean, there's,
Yeah, they're both gonna be in the paper this week, but like I said, they've been on social media and Facebook for over a week now, or online.
Are you still No, there's more stuff that I wanna do that we're gonna discuss here this year. For maps, there's other departments, stuff like that, and doing that obviously would be priority. For what I have to do in this office and I don't think it would.
I know that you mentioned you would have been interested in that.
I did, tell all the things probably came up and it just probably won't work. Too much on the plate, I think. So, as long as someone applies, that I'll be happy to want to do the job and help out.
That's my fear. That's my fear.
Well, I thought
That nobody applies.
I thought, Ed Newsmith nominated somebody there that he would have liked on there.
I've got letters.
No, I'm talking about tax director.
Oh, tax director. Oh, that
well, guys, I think with the job being out for listing, we should probably just leave it at that until we close the listing, and if we wanna talk about things after that, I think that'd probably be best for that, so. In fairness to those applying.
Yeah.
Well, if we're all done looking at the bills and everything, I guess entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Meeting adjourned, wanna hit the gavel again, I know you love it.
Fourth,